Okay, we can start. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends, it is a great honor to welcome you to this event, the 25th anniversary conference of EFPA. Today, we celebrate not only a legacy, but a living commitment to financial literacy, professional advice, and the well-being of European citizens. Allow me to speak on behalf of our more than 100,000 EFPA certificate holders. Some of them have been with us since the very beginning. They believed in this project when financial advice was still an unregulated activity. Today, thanks to the evolution of the European regulation, MiFID, IDD, and others, financial advice is a profession with standard, ethics, and purposes. EFPA has spent 25 years professionalizing this field. We certify knowledge, guide ethical behavior, and design curricula that reflects real market competencies needs at the level of knowledge, skills, and application. We oversee ethics in a rigorous way, and this year, think tank on AI in financial advice is the proof of our commitment to responsible innovation. We understand that financial advice is not a mathematical equation. It is a people business. We teach advisors to listen before they prescribe, to understand the needs before offering the solutions. We have embraced the European Commission capital market initiatives, the Capital Market Union, the Retail Investment Strategy, the Saving and Investment Union, understanding our role as facilitator of opportunity and guardians of the retail investor best interest, especially those who are inexperienced or vulnerable. And like other organizations and institutions are also doing, we kept asking ourselves, can we do more? We decided to look more carefully from the client perspective. We believe that supporting Europe's progress toward the Capital Market Union and toward the Savings Investment Union must include a strong focus on the role of financial advisors, not only in terms of qualification and ethical behaviors, but also in terms of access and visibility. Advisors must be empowered to guide more citizens, especially retail investors, through the complex and often intimidating landscape of financial decision-making. This means elevating the so-called investor journey, not just by simplifying disclosure or improving digital interfaces, but also by ensuring that every step is supported by competent, ethical, and empathetic advice. Because behind every investment decision, there is a person with goals, fears, and aspirations. And what if we could go further? What if we could recognize and measure the positive effect of advice on a personal quality of life? What if we could assess where Europeans stand in their financial life planning? Not just in terms of asset and liability, but in terms of literacy and confidence. If we could do that, we could identify gaps, tailor intervention, and celebrate success, not just in market metrics, but in human outcomes. That's the vision that inspired our latest research initiative, which you'll hear more about shortly, thanks to the presentation that we'll make to you, Mariola, the CEO of EFPA Poland. Let me thank her for the enthusiasm and the tireless work. I also thank Alexandra, the General Manager of Better Finance, and her team for embracing this idea and becoming our partner in a journey that is just beginning. The effort to affirm financial well-being as a key objective, as a common good achievable for all. I will not speak about the result of the research. As I told you, Mariola will present them shortly, but let me just speak about the context. Today, we are facing a series of gaps that must be bridged. Trillions of euros sit in low yield on non-interest-bearing savings accounts across Europe. Retail investor participation in the European capital market remains limited, far below the levels reached in the US. Europe's pension system faces mounting pressure. In 17 European countries, public pension already consume over 10% of GDP. Only 19% of European citizens hold personal pension products. This figure tells a clear story. We must foster financial knowledge and skills, teach Europeans to plan their future, putting their savings to effective use, not just for personal security, but for broader economic resilience. But individual effort alone is not enough. At political, institutional, European and national level, we must collectively re-examine the architecture of our pension system and capital markets. The gaps are too wide. Sustainable solutions will require coordinated strategies and a renewed commitment to empowering citizens. That's why the recent announcement of the European Commission Financial Literacy Strategy is so important for us. It opens a new chapter, one where financial education is not merely encouraged, but systematically supported and measured. EFPA welcomes this initiative and stands ready to contribute. Actually, we already do. Every national EFPA organization across Europe has long been active in financial education and pro bono advice. These projects are central for our mission. From EFPA Spain Financial Literacy Program, which has reached over 45,000 citizens, to EFPA Italy Educazione Finanziaria al Risparmiatore, offering free online research, from EFPA Czech Republic High School Competition, involving hundreds of students and schools, to EFPA Poland Financial Health Checks, to EFPA Austria Pro Bono Advisory Services. As you see, our members are on the ground every day, helping citizens build confidence, competence, and clarity. We also believe that advisor voice must be heard. This is why EFPA recently asked our members to contribute to ESMA call for evidence on the retail investor journey, not only from the business and client angle, but also from the advisor point of view. And this is why we have been consistently active in public consultation, advocating to be part of an open dialogue where real-world expertise can produce better outcomes. Of course, we didn't do this work alone. EFPA journeys have always been one of collaboration. We deeply value the important partnership we have built with FESIF, EBTN, Financial Planning Standard Board, and our colleagues from the CII in UK and the IOB in Ireland, who are all here with us today, and many national organizations, associations, and training institutions across Europe. These alliances have strengthened our capacity and enriched our shared mission. Together, we have been working in order to elevate standards, promote financial literacy, and advocate for the interest of European citizens. And together, we will continue to drive progress. Let's use this anniversary not only to reflect, but to recommit. Let's build a Europe where financial well-being is a shared goal, where advice is ethical and effective, and where every citizen has the tools and support to thrive. Thank you for being part of this journey, and I wish you a fruitful and inspiring conference. Thank you. And I call Mariola for the presentation of the report on financial health of European citizens, because this is the starting point. And together with that, there is also Alexandra. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for those strong words and messages. It's an excellent opening for our day today. And we, Alexandra, are very much privileged to stand in front of you today to present the very new report of financial health of Europeans. The effort has been joined, so we are joined here to present the results, and I will start, and then I will continue. You will continue with the final recommendations. Okay. So, are we ready? It's a professional privilege to be standing in front of you today. And I'm very excited, not only for the occasion, but because we at EFPA truly believe that there is something important for us to do together in the coming months and years. So I defined two goals for my today's presentation. First, I want to build your appetite to read the whole report, because there is everything in there. And perhaps even more importantly, I have the goal to encourage you to join the European community of professionals who strongly believe that financial health should be high on our agenda. Okay, so let me have it. We are celebrating the 25th anniversary of EFPA, and for some time we've been trying to find meaningful ways to communicate the role of financial advisors as contributors for our customers. So we asked ourselves the fundamental question of why. That is, what financial services, financial institutions, and people in financial institutions are for. And there are, of course, many perspectives. One would say we are to sell products. Some say we are to distribute products, and some of the financial institutions call themselves distributors. Personally, I dislike this language, and as a client, I wouldn't like to deal with a distributor. People say we service clients, and it's fair enough, but does it come up to our aspirations? So let's move to the demand side and say that we provide, using financial services, what people need. Or, being more progressive, we deliver or offer, provide value to customers. That's good enough. But then the question comes, what does the value stand for? Okay? So today, with the results of the report, we recommend and propose that the value is financial health of people. And with this perspective, we are moving from financial inclusion, which is mostly about offering the supply side, to financial health, which is the value creation for customers. So, with those thoughts in mind, we embarked on our new project. But we knew that we are not doing it in a vacuum. So we decided to do our homework. And we did the desktop research to see where globally we stand in terms of the concept of financial health. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. And what we saw in the desktop research results. It is clear now that financial health has been gaining recognition as a measure of the ultimate goal and outcome for individuals in terms of the value out of financial services, right? So when you read the documents of the leading global organizations, starting with UN, OECD, G20, BIS, you see financial health in their strategic documentation, in the research results with a strong call for stakeholders' engagement and call for action. We can read that financial health should be the measure of success, not only in financial literacy, which should move beyond knowledge and move into efforts to build new behaviors of how we take care of our personal finance. It is strongly emphasized that financial institutions have unique opportunity and responsibility to make financial health an element of people's lives. So with this bigger context, we embarked on our research. And going into the first results, I want to start with the message from our lead researcher, Katarzyna Sekścińska, who, having written the final report, said achieving financial health should be one of the priority for every person. Actually, I could stop here, but there is more. But we can say easier said than done. So very often in EFPA, we think that what gets measured gets improved. So we really wanted to add to the overall picture with the very first step to see where we stand in terms of financial health in Europe. So we embarked on the research in the financial health of European. It was a joint effort and excellent cooperation with Better Finance. The research was, this is the result. The research was performed since April to July this year in 9 countries, and in Poland it was delivered last year. So perhaps let's have the first specific result of the research, but before that, let's see who participated. We had 10 countries, a good distribution, geographic distribution in Europe. Over 14,000 people participated, so a very representative sample. Some of you can find your numbers on the list, and throughout the report, all the results you can see distributed by the countries participating and also by women and men. Going into the research, we decided that analyzing financial health, we are going to go into some specific areas. So we wanted to get answers on financial stability and financial situation of households, the sense of financial security, planning and achieving financial goals. This is an area very close to EFPA heart. Self-assessed financial knowledge, of course, liabilities, financial safeguards, that is what kind of financial controls people use, and then attitudes about money, that is how we feel about money, what emotions money evokes in us. Working on the final report, we really were determined to offer valuable insights to a wide range of recipients of the report. So starting from public institutions and regulators, financial institutions, of course, financial advisors working with the clients, educators and trainers, psychologists, and of course, last but not least, the consumers. It was very important for us at the start of the research to define what we mean by financial health. We also tried to use simple sort of human language for it. So here it goes. We define financial health as a state in which you feel you are in control of your finance monthly, annually. You are able to cope with unexpected bigger expenses, so you have a financial buffer. You meet your financial goal according to the plan, and it's a major area. And you have financial freedom to make decisions that allow you to enjoy life. We have this perspective that money is not an office, it's not accounting, it's a tool to make us be able to live according to our values. And what is important to say, those 4 areas actually are found in all the different international approaches to how financial health is defined. So we are synergetic with what is there in terms of financial health. So with this definition, let's have it. The first concrete result of our research. Financial health of Europeans, self-evaluation 4.3. The scale is 1 to 7, where 1 is very bad and 7 is very good. From the methodological point of view, the result is neutral, which means not bad, not good. I'm an optimist, so typically I would say the glass is half full. But given the importance of financial health, I would argue the glass is half empty. And it shows how much is there to do. With this result, you also have the country distribution of the figure. And I should perhaps clarify that this figure comes out of asking the question, how would you rate the state of your financial health? And as you can see, we are, the highest is 4.61 for Poland. Optimistic nation, it seems, and 3.92 for Hungary. Quite critical. Okay. Now, with this overall evaluation, let's go deeper into the results in selected key areas of the research. So, the perception of financial health by Europeans. 86% say financial health is important. Only 15 feel financially free. 78% believe financial health is achievable. This is very optimistic. But 1/3 believe that it is achievable only for wealthy people. What is important is, and for some of us it was quite a surprise, a positive surprise, that 67% think that financial health is achievable not only for the wealthy people. So this shows the potential of what we can do together. But then I think we come with the result which is really very, very worrying. Less than half feel financially secure in Europe, which means that over 50% people in Europe do not feel secure. So let's call for action and let's work together. Financial knowledge and skills. Quick overview. We, talking Europeans, we evaluate our knowledge well in basic elements, in basic areas. It's by far worse if we go into more sophisticated, complex elements of knowledge, starting from investment. I would like also to observe that still I think we do not differentiate between knowledge and skills, and it makes a huge difference, and it's a very relevant topic for financial education, because you can imagine it's a completely different story to know how to ride a bike and to ride the bike, right? And that's the difference between knowledge and skills. But the good news from this area is that there is really a high appetite to learn. So we have people open to learn and grow in this area. Then we have income and expenditure awareness, and this is an interesting one. We know very little, and we can not precisely define how much we earn. Yeah, more or less, and it's very more less than more. We are slightly better in terms how much we spend, but still there is plenty to do in this area. Because it's an important area. When you don't know where you're going, you will not get anywhere. So we went deeper into this area and we created a financial control index, and the average score in Europe is 8.6. The index is composed of 15 elements, which means 15 different tools to control your finances. So the 8.6 means that out of possible 15, on average, a citizen of Europe uses 8.6 tools. So this is an area for improvement. Debt and savings. Emmanuel mentioned it, of course. We, yesterday night, were talking about the Europeans being good savers. Still, from the report, it's clear that there is improvement possible in savings also, especially if we talk long-term savings. But just few numbers, 36 hold liabilities. What is, I think, relevant, 49 faced repayment issues. And 15% have no savings at all, right? And if we say predominantly, we save for short-term goals, not the long-term goals. Then investment and retirement. And we also talked about the challenges related to demographics and retirement resources for people. And it's really striking, again, that 44% of Europeans do not know the value of their pension contribution, right? And even worse, 32% do not do anything for retirement, and even more, they won't. And you know, when I read this result, I thought it looks like a lost population. Yeah. So there is really some alarming signals here. And for investment, we have here saving accounts and term deposits and passive cash holding. So in this group, we know that it's not really investment. If we go into investment as we understand it, the picture is really, really glooming. Then financial planning and goal pursuit. And this is, again, this idea of if you know where you're going, you can get there, right? So in Europe, the picture is the following. We declare that we are good in planning and even long-term planning. But then if you say, okay, so let's have a check it, then what we have, 15% only persist consequently with delivering on the plan. So we plan, but we do not deliver. And I think this area actually, which is one of the core out of 4 core areas for financial health, is a major area of improvement. It's a major area for strong practical financial literacy interventions, and it's a important area for financial advisors and their support to clients, because we should be sending the message to the customers that financial health is like getting fit. No one is going to do it for you. This is the bad news. The good news is that you are not alone, or you can choose not to be alone, and you can go to your trusted advisor for help. And finally, the last area is attitudes towards money, emotion, culture, and behavior. If you try not to read the slide, and I ask you, which 3 words connotate with you when you think money? What comes into your mind? Anyone? Independence, good one. Anyone? Wealth? So it was surprising to us to some extent that what we find here is 75% associate it with security, which is sort of intuitive, right? But then comes freedom, which connotates with independence. 90% money, I simplify, equals freedom. And then 81 say it brings happiness. Yeah. And I think this shows the need and the importance of using new language when we talk about money. Then feelings about money, strong emotions, both good and bad, right? Interesting and relevant one. 50% say that money causes household arguments. So if we improve in this area, we really go into improving well-being of people, right? And then money is really the fundamental tool to meet our physical basic needs. But what is important, and it relates to financial health, it connects very much to our psychological health, to our social position, and to our self-actualization. So now, in brief, the key findings of our research. Financial health is very important to Europeans, though for many it feels out of reach. There is a strong connection between financial health, psychological health, and social well-being. Financial security is the foundation for financial health. More than 50% of Europeans do not feel financially secure today. We have limited financial control and budgeting practices, major gaps in financial planning and goal pursuit, but high motivation to learn. So this is, in a capsule, the key findings of our research. And before I give it over to Alexandra for final recommendations coming from our report, I would like to share with you a piece of work in progress that we've been doing as EFPA, and we will continue. We were a little bit hesitant whether to show it because it is work in progress, but it's very relevant in terms of our declaration that we measure to improve. So I'm proud to present to you the very fresh and new prototype financial health perception index for Europe. And it is the working name of it, Financial Health Beat 3.6, as the representation of how we perceive our financial health in Europe. And just a few words of explanation. First, a prototype index, a perception index as a benchmark for other measures, and it is a composite index composed of 10 elements, and those 10 elements came as the most influential elements in our research. So those elements really translated in the final evaluation of financial health. And here you have the distribution around Poland. And what we could see is that the financial health BEAT index is closer together among different countries than the first result that was the answer of just one question. And it showed to us that we are moving in the right direction and that that index can be more representative of the perception of how we feel about financial health in Europe. So, Emmanuel, all the colleagues from EFPA, I understand that we can declare we will continue our work to measure, to improve. And now I give it over to Alexandra for final recommendations coming out of our research. Alexandra, please.
So the recommendations, and I think after the introduction of Mariola, nobody expects it's going to be mostly about financial education, because we think there is much more to improve financial health of EU citizens than just financial education and literacy. So as Mariola already said, financial education and skills to get to financial health are two different things. The best would be they go in parallel and that people have both a very good financial literacy and financial knowledge and the skills, but for the time being, it is not the case. So we really think that what should be done and where should more attention of EU citizens go should be budgeting, saving, financial planning, and also some tools and realistic scenarios that they can build, ideally with a good quality advice that they get from the advisors. Then encourage awareness and planning habits. This is definitely an area when we still have to improve in the EU. And there are good ideas, for example, also from EIOPA when it comes especially to retirement, how to help citizens with that. Because as we saw from the research results, only a small proportion of citizens are able to say what is their income. But what I found even more concerning, this was not mentioned by Mariola, that unfortunately many of the EU citizens quite grossly exaggerate and overestimate their pensions in the future, and some even believe that they're going to be higher than their current salaries. So this gives you the extent to which we really have a problem in the EU, and this also comes with the huge pension gap that we have already. So facilitate debt management. We would like to see more tools and guidance for responsible borrowing and for some early interventions. And there are also some good ideas how to go about that. And what Mariola already mentioned, and this is extremely important, really to support more this goal-driven behavior. And this we see as a very important role also for financial advisors. So we would like to see more help for individuals to get good quality advice to help them go into the direction of their long-term goal. We saw also some concerning results as to how many people really have long-term goals when it comes to their financial health and how many really consistently pursue them. And this is quite concerning because we know that also from the Better Finance report on the real returns of pension savings, that many people nowadays are invested in products that not really bring them good value for money. And unfortunately, also many of them do not realize that. As we have seen, many do not realize what is even their financial contribution towards their pension. And also too many say they don't do anything about the pensions and they won't do anything about their pensions. And this brings us to the next recommendation, and this is about addressing emotional triggers. So Mariola also mentioned that money evokes strong emotions. What I found quite surprisingly, Swedes were among the ones where actually those emotions were extremely strong when it comes to money. And for example, in Better Finance opinion, one of the good ways of helping citizens to address those emotional triggers and not to go and divert from their financial plan would be, for example, to have more auto-enrollment in the EU when it comes to pensions, to keep and help the citizens to stay on the track towards their retirement. And then tailor advice and to cultural and gender needs. So we saw some differences when it comes to results for different countries. And most likely it also comes from different cultural contexts, but not only of the citizens, also of the financial advisors. And we also know from different research studies that not in every country financial advisors sees advising for retirement as their main goal. We learned that, for example, in the UK, most of the advisors sees advising for the retirement as one of the main objectives. It looks completely different. I think it was something about 70% of advisors. It looks completely different in countries like Italy, when only 17% of the advisors consider this is the main area where they should actually advise citizens. Sort of no-brainer, of course, technology, it helps a lot to help people with financial planning and going on to the financial health. There is often the topic of gamification then comes in, and it can be useful, but there are also some caveats that should be taken into account when we talk about gamification in terms of improving financial wealth of citizens. And last but definitely not least, so this is really actually the most important recommendations from Better Finance side, pairing education with trusted advice. Better Finance has been saying over decades that being a financial consumer and an investor is not a full-time job. Many people not only have the financial skills to do it, but they also don't have the financial literacy to do it yet. And therefore, in our opinion, what would be one of the most important goals for the EU, it would be to really ensure access to very good quality advice to citizens, because this is exponentially also improving their chances of achieving at some point financial health and wealth. And as I said already, we really see the critical role of financial advice on this journey to achieving financial wealth. And across different countries in the survey, people still very clearly say that they do rely on financial advice and financial advisors. And we think it would be really very important to deepen this research, because I mean, the main core of the research the project that we have done with EFPA this time was actually, the survey was very much focused and concentrated on the topics of financial health. But based on the results that we have seen, we think it would really be very valuable to deepen the research into financial advice and to also understand why, for example, in some countries of the EU, people rather go to their friends and relatives to look for recommendations when it comes to financial decisions, while in some other countries, quite many of citizens go to the advisors. By the way, I was very interested when I was waiting for the results of the study to see if the situation changed from 2018, when the Commission study was published, and where it was pretty clear that predominantly EU citizens, when they at some point consider they should get financial advice, they go mostly to their financial bank advisors. And most of them also at that point in time were not aware about some possible conflicts of interest were going. Then most of them assumed that the advice that they are getting was for free. This has not changed much. So still many people, when they go to financial advisors, go to their banks. And again, it would be really interested also to understand their reasoning. We did not ask those questions in the current survey and project, but I think it will be very important to do that in the future and not too far away future. So we will have still 2 panels and debate to discuss the role of financial advice. But as I said before, we think that one of the most important critical components of a good strategy of the EU to improve the health of the citizens would be to improve the quality of financial advice and access to it in the EU. Thank you.
I have the mic. I have the mic. Okay. So with the words of Alexandra, you can see, Alexandra, please stay with me. What an excellent partner EFPA has for the report. We hope you felt the energy and the enthusiasm that we have. And it's not only because I think we can say we are proud of what we've achieved so far, but we are excited about the importance of the way forward, right? So to conclude, I think we need to thank the key contributors to the report, starting from Katarzyna Sekścińska, who is possibly watching us online. And we hope to continue the cooperation. Our sincere thanks to Emmanuel Carluccio. Can you pronounce the name properly?
Sebastian Comin, our Policy and Research Officer at Better Finance.
Okay. Aleksandra Mączyńska, Weronika Lakatos, and last but not least, all the participating members and countries and the respondents to the questionnaire. And if you allow me, 2 final words and messages. One message I would like actually to send to our members, that is financial advisors. Go and talk to your clients about financial health. Tell them that they can improve their financial health every day. 2 messages. The bad one is that they have to engage and they have to do it themselves. The good news is they are not alone. They can rely on your professional support. And to went back to the beginning, we strongly believe in the community of certified financial advisors and in collaboration with Better Finance, that financial health is our common good in the European society. So let's work together to improve it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mariola and Alexandra, for the excellent presentation of the report. And now we have the reaction to the report. I call on the stage Laura Noonan from Bloomberg, who will moderate the panel. And I'm calling also the people from the panel, Marie-Sophie Lappe, research analyst from Bruegel, Ines Scacchi, Director of Regulatory Affairs of the European Savings and Retail Banking Association, and Philippe Tille from the Cabinet of Commissioner Maria Luisa Albuquerque. Laura, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. This might be the first event I have ever attended where we've actually been on the stage early. So that is a novel experience for me, and I'm definitely glad I got here on time. But I guess the financial planners, I shouldn't be surprised that you guys plan to be here on time, plan to keep it running on time. So we shall also try to keep on time. We have the report, I saw most of it, and it was fascinating to hear. So I'd love to just get some perspectives initially from our esteemed guests about whether this reaffirmed what we already knew about financial literacy and financial health, or if anything surprised you or was different than what you expected. So I'm going to come to you first, Marie-Sophie, and we have another microphone there if you want to pass it down, Philippe. So was there anything in there from your time looking at this topic that struck you as surprising, unusual, new?
Yeah, let me maybe first start with the things that I think the report really iterates, that is also known in literature, is of course just the general, lack of financial literacy. There were some dire results here as well that make us all motivated to do something about it. Then things like the gender gap, just a big heterogeneity within Europe, different outcomes for different countries, of course. And also one big point I just want to reiterate is the low engagement in retirement savings, which is really a big blind spot that we all should worry and do something about. But maybe let me come to some of the things that I found new and important that I really think this report also highlights in a good way, which is first of all, this seeming mismatch between actual levels of financial literacy and the appetite to increase them. So there seems to be a lot of motivation and also the recognition of the importance of financial literacy amongst the general population, but it just doesn't really translate into results, it seems. So I think this willingness to learn is a big plus. The lack of it turning into action is still a big minus, where we need to understand where that mismatch comes from. So is it just a lack of accessibility? Is it a lack of resources? Or is it also maybe a lack of confidence? I mean, all of these things are usually also recognized in the literature, especially also this lack of confidence in women, for example. And linked to that, I also found one other result somewhat worrying is this perception issue that for some people it really seems to be that financial health is only something for either the wealthy or the people who are already financially knowledgeable. So I think this also plays into this idea that there seems to be a lack of confidence. This also reinforces inequalities, of course. And yeah, so there's really this need to figure out whether there's an actual lack of resources, so if people really just don't have the financial space, or whether it's really just more of a perception that technically they could, but they don't know how to do so effectively. On a positive note, there also seems to be some level of self-assessed confidence in at least basic financial knowledge, which is great and which I think we also should build on. And taking this together, so kind of the idea of a lack of knowledge and also a lack of potential usability. So these hurdles that need to be overcome. So of course, one point is very important: financial education, of course. We're all aware, also somewhat aware of different strategies, what are important ones, starting early on in education, bringing it to the workplace, targeting specific groups and so on. But I think on top of that, we also need to improve usability in a way, or accessibility. And I think a lot of this would be done to just simplifying a lot of the complicated landscape that's currently out there. So looking for simpler products, better accessibility through technology as well. And yeah.
Okay, I'm glad that you mentioned the point about simplicity, because I think possibly part of the mismatch between people's claiming to want to be more financially literate, more financially healthy, and them getting there could actually be how difficult it is. And, you know, maybe not everybody wants to do as much work as it is now. I think that's something that we'll have to explore. And we're going to turn to you next, Inez. From the perspective of the savings banks who you represent, did the report resonate with you? And do you see areas in there where the savings banks can play a useful role in terms of maybe if this report were to be done again in, say, 5 years' time, in terms of improving some of those numbers?
Yes, good morning. First of all, let me congratulate for the study. As a panelist, I had the privilege to have the report well in advance. I spent a few days to study and read extensively, and it was really great. So I really recommend to everyone, even to understand our way to spend, to save, to approach to this issue. So many things really sounds familiar to us. First of all, let me say that it's not surprising that 78% of respondents say that they save only occasionally. This is raise broader concern about people spending and consuming habits, and which is something that sometimes is really disregarded when we talk about savings and investment union, for instance. And with respect to long-term savings, short-term savings, I was astonished to read in the report that 44% of the respondents say that they save for vacations. I mean, really, something is missing, the habits and the consumer. We live in a consumer society. So after say that, I'm glad even to say that the report challenge a quite common narratives these days, that most of the Europeans are just savings are just sitting on the bank account. Indeed, the data show that more than 50% savings are in terms deposits, which provide a return. We can discuss if little or not, but a return. 22% in financial products, 13% in real estate, 10% in crypto activities, and 27% indeed in not interest-bearing accounts. And this give and provide us a comprehensive picture to reflect on. Then I was really depressing with regard to the pension. To me, it's astonished that in an aging society like Europe, pensions are the last knowledge and understood topic. I really encourage the Commission to work on it. And I was, even as a woman, I was really attached on the fact that even on the savings and in pension and financial education, yet there is a gender gap. So maybe the gender gap, even internally to our community of banks, we haven't reflected so far about this issue. Savings banks know as well, very well, their clients. We have branches, we engage with the advisor on the territories, on the communities, and I can say that the customer journey is too complex. And then other things.
If you just keep the mic just closer to your... Yeah.
Sorry. The customer journey is really complex, even for simple products. When you talk with the clients, and our banks do, even understanding a MiFID questionnaire, on sustainability issues is too complex, doesn't engage and discourage people to invest. Last point, which didn't come from the report though, taxation and administration burden matter. So taxation, according to what our branches say to us, taxation is the biggest concern, is the biggest worry and concern of the customer when they decide, if they decide to invest. Because if you are taxed on 30% of your capital gain, you run away.
Okay, and I guess maybe that's also a case for some financial issue. I mean, I appreciate there is an issue around tax, but also being taxed 30% of a 10% return is still better than getting 2% in a term deposit. So I guess that's also a financial education conversation.
Term deposit is simple from an administrative point of view. And they have a perception, because of course the average people, they don't reflect about inflation. They have a perception that there is no taxation and it's easy.
Okay, thank you for that. Philippe, first of all, thank you very much for heroically joining us and subbing in for Rika last night. I want you to bring you in for the Commission's perspective here, because the Commission, as everybody in this room knows, is very active on a number of these topics, your Commissioner in particular. So is there anything in this report that makes you think maybe some of the priorities need to shift, or does it more make you think that you're on the right track and these are highlighting gaps which the Commission was already working on proposals around?
Okay, maybe first let me start by thanking the authors of the report, because it's work and data points like this that are really important also for us in informing our work and in making sure that we really take the measures that are of interest to citizens and that resonate with them. And I want to say it's good timing to have this discussion today, because as we're speaking here, the college is currently debating two important initiatives. I think that go to the very core of the issues addressed in the report. First, the financial literacy strategy, and our recommendation on savings and investments accounts. I think I'll have a chance a bit later to go provide a bit more flesh on the bone. Of course, can't give all the spoilers because it's not formally adopted yet. And I think maybe let me start off by saying I was encouraged by two key data points that came out of this report. The first one is how important financial health is to the citizens and to the respondents. And second, also that there's a real willingness to improve and to learn, which shows, I think, that some of the actions that we're envisaging now go in the right direction and that we're actually catering to the demands of the people out there. Maybe just a word also on some of the key data points that you've found and that resonate with what we've also observed. The first one being the relatively low level of emergency savings and the low resilience to important financial shocks. The second one being the relative lack of awareness and I may say preparedness for pensions. And the last one being the relatively high rates or the very high rates of savings still kept in either savings accounts or term deposits. These are things that we've also observed in preparing our initiatives, and we are taking the measures that we're taking now, and the package that will be adopted later today aims to address these very issues. And maybe to conclude with a few messages that came out of the report that we also want to highlight in our own work. The first one being the observed divergences, I think first between the member states and also between different demographic groups. To us, this confirms that there's room for the EU to step in and to do more to support the initiatives. And I think there's many very important and very good initiatives, both by public stakeholders and by private stakeholders, that are already going on. So we can have a supportive role there. And it also shows how important it is to tailor-make these initiatives to cater for the needs and the preferences and the specific situation of the different target groups. That brings me to the second point that we're also trying to address in our financial literacy strategy, really putting an emphasis on reaching people where they are and speaking to them in a manner that they can relate to with, for example, people that have a similar background that can really relate to their problems and convey the messages in a manner that very much speaks to the target audiences. And maybe the last and probably most important point and also message that is very important to the Commissioner, that is that financial literacy is not just a preoccupation for people that have money to invest. It's much broader than investment literacy. It's really for everybody, and it's for everyday life decisions. It touches on things like budgeting, like managing debt, even grocery shopping can involve important financial decisions. And we've seen that if there's targeted actions in this area and working with communities and people on these elements, you can have a real impact on people's life. And you can manage that people that weren't previously able to save at the end of the month, they will have some money left over and they can put that either to their emergency savings or saving to other financial goals.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And so I guess one of the things that struck me from the report is that financial literacy does encompass many, many different things. And I guess one of the issues we talk about is, and we'll talk a little later, is how to prioritize the many things. And it also means different things to different people. The retail investment strategy, I know the Commission has put a lot of focus on that because it matters both from a financial health perspective, but also from an economic contribution perspective. So it has multi-layers to it. But when we think about how key is the retail investment piece, Marie-Sophie, I'm going to come to you first. When you think about financial health as a whole, how key is it to get people habitually investing money in something other than leaving it on deposit in a bank?
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up, mainly because, so I mean, this links a lot to the retirement discussion that we've already started, that it's just really key importance for long-term financial health as well. And I think it also really plays into the security aspect that was also mentioned, that money is associated with security. And if we think about, I mean, this is also, we had a discussion at the dinner yesterday, but as a person who knows that my, let's say, Pillar 1 pension or my public pension is far from being secure, I know that my financial future might be less secure than that of other people, than that of my parents or my grandparents. So for me, this is also just a question of how sure can people be about their future and their financial future? And retail investment here, I think, is a key part, mainly because it is the key lever basically on how to make our money work for us. And especially for young people, the earlier you start, the better it is. And so I think it's really key getting people engaged and to get people to actively invest. And on top of that, of course, to get them invested in something that's not just a low yield bank account, but also to diversify in that way.
Okay, we are going to come to the pensions conversation in a second, but Inez, I saw your eyebrows raise at the concept of a low yield bank account not being a good thing to put your money into. So Marie-Sophie, if you want to pass the microphone over there and maybe you can give us your perspective on how you consider the retail investment strategy as part of the holistic drive towards better financial health.
Okay, let me clarify very clearly and firmly that as a savings banks, we fully support financial education, financial literacy, financial health. It's part of our DNA. But savings banks since long are engaged in their communities on these efforts. So instead of waiting for a top-down approach, we already are there and with many, many good examples. Of course, much more need to be done because the issue of financial literacy, there are millions of good initiatives, good practices, but the scaling up effect is missing. So we welcome your holistic strategy. We are really in favor. Just a few examples of what the savings banks do in their territories. Swedbank in Sweden reach more than 100,000 students a year with the Young Economy program. The German Savings Bank Association has started since more than 30 years ago, the European Stock Market Learning, which is a competition in a stock market simulation in which students compete to invest a portfolio. This engages more than 130,000 students per year. In Italy, they run the same exercise. In Luxembourg, Sportcast does a nice thing, a Twiz Club with actors and with theater. They teach since the pupil in school in a funny way some basic financial concepts. In Vienna, Erste Group runs the Financial Life Park, a park in Vienna dedicated to this, even online to reach. But we are not just engaged for youth and students, we are really care about adults and senior citizens as well. I mentioned just two good practices. In France, Finance et Pédagogie, which is part of a PPSE group, provide adult learning activities in partnership with public authority. So the importance of public-private
there are lots of educational initiatives going on.
And yes, in Kesha, in Spain, for instance, Kesha runs a Futuro program, which is exactly on a planning for retirement, for pension, and for financial independence in the later life. And they run this program even for small and medium enterprise, because we forgot that small and medium enterprise are retail clients.
This is true as well. Philippe, I'm going to bring you in now. Just we have one audience question, which I will come to next. I should have said audience questions can be made through that chat if you're online. If you're in the room and you have a question, raise your hand and I'll try and get a microphone to you. Philippe, what I wanted to ask you was, we were discussing last week at Eurofi, and I think some of your people were there as well, whether the lack of retail investment is because of a lack of access to products, like people can't access them, or it's because of a lack of willingness or a lack of awareness. Because some people express concern that the Commission was spending a lot of time on the practicalities of setting up a product, when in fact, in many countries, people actually can invest. They can go on an app and they can do retail investments. They just choose not to. So what do you think the issue is? Is it access, or is it more of a mindset issue?
No, thanks. I think that's a very important question, of course, because when we were discussing which initiatives to get into this was one of the questions that came up. And I think the Commission has also publicly said she does not believe that European retail investors are fundamentally different first among each other. So you can see there's different levels of investment in different member states. And you can see there's a very high level of participation in some member states. She does not believe that it's a fundamental difference in nature, but it's more about giving the right incentives to people. And I think that's where we come in with the package that will be for adoption today, working on both angles. First, working on the financial literacy, raising awareness, spreading the knowledge, giving investors or retail investors the tools to confidently navigate this space, but also working on accessibility, because it's true that you may have the ability to open an account on an app at least in some member states. There's really good initiatives already out there. But the truth is also, it still remains a very daunting task to invest, because there's the complexity around it, be it the tax treatment, be it the regulatory obligations to comply with. There's also the fact of taking the leap and taking some risk. And I believe if you are with a bank advisor and you're talking about placing your money somewhere, and you hear about the fact that you may potentially lose that money, that creates a barrier as well, in a sense. So it is about raising awareness about that. It's also about making it easier for people to take that leap, and that's where our recommendation on the savings and investments accounts comes in, which is really focused on usability and flexibility. So having a seamless process, making sure that citizens are not locked in. Also working on increasing competition in the market, so with the objective of bringing down the fees and fostering innovation. And I think the taxation question is obviously a very important one, both from a compliance perspective. It can be very complicated to understand what the tax consequences are. The rules are very, very different in different member states and for different products. And also from an incentive side, of course, this is a very powerful lever. If you know that if you do the leap, you will not necessarily be taxed at the full rate if ever that investment produces a return. So that's something that member states can consider when trying to promote it. We've seen that there's a number of member states and also countries beyond the EU that have done this, that have shown that it can really work in increasing retail investor participation. So we've looked at those examples. We've tried to identify what works best. What are the factors that really explain why some accounts have been taken up and others may have had a bit less success? And we're putting these as at the disposal of member states in a sort of blueprint, so that for those member states that don't have these tools yet, they can take inspiration. And for those that already have them but may not entirely be satisfied with the take-up, they can use this also to review their national systems and see what tweaks they may be able to make to change that.
Thank you. So on the topic of the things that also prevent people from doing it, that the audience question we have is about one of those aspects, and the audience member is asking, is it true that the customer is discouraged by MiFID obligations, but it's our job, I guess, as financial planners, to make them understand why it is important? Why think that taxation is the biggest thought, I guess we mean obstacle? Is it up to the consultant? It's up to the consultant in the planning field to do an upstream job in order to make the customer achieve the objectives by advising him in the best possible way. So I guess the underlying question is, first of all, MiFID obligations, are they a discouragement? And is that something which a financial planner should be able to help a client to overcome? And then the second point around taxation, and why is that such a big hurdle? Marie-Sophie, I'm going to bring you in here on either point. You can pick whichever one of those appeals to you, and then I'll turn to Inez on the other one. You've drawn the short straw here.
Yeah, let's maybe, since I am not a financial advisor, maybe talk about the taxation issue as a potential hurdle. I think there is multiple dimensions to this. The first one being is that it is daunting. At least I'm from Germany. The tax system in Germany is insanely complicated, and I'm sure that many other EU citizens feel the same. There's really just a daunting task to have to worry about whether your tax is deducted correctly, whether you can maybe get money back, but you don't know how. So I think this just comes on top of the fact that you need to make really complicated financial decisions. I mean, products are not accessible to the average person. So I think I see it definitely as a hurdle. Whether it's the biggest one, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, that also depends on the person and how they view things. But I guess the entry point is usually the more worrying one, and then taxation comes a little bit after. But I'm sure that financial advisors can also provide support in that. So
You definitely know your audience. Philippe, I'm going to bring you in on the taxation point shortly. But first off, Inez, the MiFID concerns,
Yeah.
is that something that can be overcome?
Yes, if I may, of course, our advisor need to and go through a long journey with the clients. The MiFID framework is complex, and after a while, when you remain on the surface, when you remain on the biggest topic, the customer follows you, is engaged. But after a while, when you go through too detailed choices, option, explanation, the customer loses his patience. It's like us, to be honest with us. Do you read a contract? Do you read 20 pages of small characters? We know that we need to do something. We sign a contract without even read the contract or the information. The issue is that we need to pose the question, wouldn't be too much? Would it be better to simplify? And our role yet is to explain, but rules change continuously. So in order to build up some kind of experience, competence, rules need to be remain stable. In MiFID, we assist continuously on changing, adding. So the customer, even though the advisor, the private advisor, the banks do their best, are simply discouraged. It's too much.
Okay, thank you. Philippe, what I wanted to ask you about was when I read that the Commission is trying to do something around taxation, what it reminded me of from a practical perspective is banking union when they were trying to do the European Deposit Insurance Guarantee Scheme. This stuff is really difficult to achieve. And does it run the risk that we get stuck? Like we've been in conversations about EDIS for probably a decade. Does it run the risk that everything gets tied up in taxation and it's impossible to reconcile and that then blocks progress?
No, thanks. I think that's a very legitimate question. Of course, taxation is always a sensitive topic also for the member states. There's also limited measures that we can take in that domain. But I do think the approach that we've taken is the right one. We've looked at what is out there in terms of best practices. So these are measures that are already implemented by some member states or by some third countries in certain cases. And we're putting that at disposal of the member states. I do think there's a very high level commitment by the member states for implementing the necessary measures to develop our capital markets. So we want to work in giving them the tools to do so. And I do think what we're trying to do, and you'll see it later today, is really be sufficiently, let's say, open to accommodate the differences in national taxation systems, because that can often be a question. If we would go forward and encourage member states to do something that doesn't fit well with the way their system is set up, then of course that's a very difficult thing to do. But if we can work with them in designing a model that fits with their existing rules, that makes it a lot easier. And I would say that there's a lot of different ways of going about it. There's the complexity question in terms of just making compliance easier, working potentially with providers to do this work for the investors so that they don't have to worry about calculating capital gains, what is the different tax treatment to dividends, to interest payments that they're getting. And on the other hand, of course, taxation is also a very powerful economic lever, and the way you design the taxation system will steer behavior, and it's intended to steer behavior. So it has to be part of the conversation. And by giving an advantage to some products and not others, you direct the investor or the citizen investing their money to certain of these products. And that's a reality, and that's something that the member states need to acknowledge.
Thank you. So I want to bring you in here, Marie-Sophie, on a slightly different topic. So we've been talking a lot, and a lot of the conversation I've seen around savings and investment union has been around promoting good. But the other side of the coin is trying to prevent harm. So one of the things we were talking about last night as well is the buy now, pay later culture, which we've had a lot of in the UK, and the extent to which a situation where you haven't even got to save for your first tennis racket because you can just pay for your €50 tennis racket over 4 installments, the extent to which that discourages young people in particular for developing the habit of saving, and how that can have a bigger impact later. So Marie-Sophie, I'll bring you in here just to get, you're probably also the youngest person I think on this panel and possibly in this room, their perspective on if the buy now, pay later culture of instant gratification, you could have it, you don't need to save for anything, will change how a generation thinks about savings.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. I think that the just accessibility of, in this case, I guess some degree of debt through digital tools is a risk. And also with the lack of overview that a lot of young people have, I mean, that is a big problem that drives these accumulated micro debts in a way, is certainly a risk, and it needs to be, I mean, here I'm just repeating a lot of things, can be tackled probably most effectively by financial literacy, but also by giving young people the tools to get a good overview of what they're spending, how they're spending things, potentially even talking about, I mean, depending on what age we're looking at, restrictions to protect young people from such things. But I think so, even though these digital tools and this accessibility has risks, it can also have benefits in just getting young people to save more in different ways. So that you think about, there's a recently just a lot of fintechs, for example, using these micro savings in a way that if you spend just a small percentage of your spending gets set aside. So these kind of digital products can then, on the other hand, also show opportunities. So I think the balancing between the risk and the opportunities here is really important. And the underlying ground of this to make this accessible and usable for young people is also just education and accessibility in terms of the risks and understanding them.
Thank you. So Inez, I'm going to bring you in here, and then I think we got our first audience question, which is very exciting. So Inez, what's your perspective on whether the buy now, pay later culture is a challenge for trying to also build a savings culture?
To be honest with you, we don't encourage this kind of methodology. Buy now, pay later. Absolutely, it's something that doesn't really give the perception of being in trouble, and will end up to be in trouble. We have the experience of the Nordics, for instance, especially the young in the Nordics. So this kind of schemes, method of payments, maybe we need, but in Europe we have a robust framework on that. So I encourage to be even bolder on this. Over in-depthness is an issue because we are, I said at the very beginning, we are a consumer society. So we need to pay particularly attention to the youth on this.
Okay, thank you. So the gentleman at the front there, I think, had a remark. Do we have a roving microphone, or will we give him one of ours? I think we're going to pass the microphone. And if you wouldn't mind briefly introducing yourself, that would be great. Thank you.
Roger Hartmann. I'm the chairman of EFPA in Luxembourg and an observer of the financial industry over the last 42 years. I like this report. It didn't bring new light because all this was extremely clear in my mind. The great thing is to have it black and white and to have it documented and to have it in an academic approach, that we have now something to show what we all knew. And this is an enormous advantage. I am concerned. I was concerned. I am concerned. I'm even anxious. And my point was to show to demonstrate some new trends which are appearing in the markets of banks. In Luxembourg, a Dutch bank decided to kick out thousands of clients who are small. And small is a family with a total amount below 50,000 euro. This is small. Please go away. We don't want you anymore. We concentrate on core affluent and wealth management. These poor refugees found place within the state bank, mainly a little bit at Raiffeisen, a mutual bank, and in some other places. As I'm very much connected to all these banks, I said, why do you take these refugees? And they said, look, having a bank account is a fundamental right in Europe, and we have to accept these refugees. Do we like these refugees? The answer is no. Do we want really to advise these refugees? No, but they have the fundamental right to have a bank account. My question, when I hear all this and I look at your dreams, I had a dream to have clients having good advice, even though they are not millionaires. That's something very ambitious. I still have doubts it will happen one day because banks are amazingly looking at their profitability. I see more the emergence of new revolutes, which exist in France, in Germany, in other places. And banks will slowly be replaced by the revolutes of the new world. So the whole thing is somewhere shifting. And we, as a EFPA, we have to look and observe at this shifting because we used to work a lot with banks, and we should probably look at neobanks, we should look at fintechs, we should look at this, all what is emerging, and the whole paradigm is changing. This was what I wanted to bring in the discussion.
Thank you so much. And Philippe, I'm going to bring you in there just on the idea of access to advice, access to, I guess banks are commercial entities, so they are allowed to offboard a client segment they don't like. So how do you consider that from a policy perspective?
No, thank you very much. I do think I won't comment on individual commercial decisions, obviously, but I do think in general, this shows a bit the thinking behind the savings and investments account as well, which we purposefully want to be open even to individuals who only have a very limited contribution to make, because even that limited contribution can make a difference in their life. And we do see this as a tool to foster competition and to potentially have both incumbents and new entrants reconsider whether this may be an opportunity that they want to explore and develop their activities in the space. So we do think it can really be a catalyst. Now, of course, it depends on whether the frameworks will be implemented by the member states.
So yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you just on that, on the member states, is how much of what the Commission is doing in this area depends on the member states willing, and will it be implemented in a patchwork of ways across the member states who are embracing it and the member states that aren't? And how much can the Commission do to ensure some kind of level implementation across many member states with different starting points and different objectives?
I think that's the crucial point, that we have different starting points. So I think there's some member states out there who really have well-functioning examples. There's the other member states who have only recently introduced such frameworks. So we'll need probably a bit more experience to know how successful they'll be. But in the end, we were very conscious of that, and we also understand that we need to cater for the national context and the existing frameworks and rules, including around taxation. So there's probably no one size fits all to this, and it will be up to individual member states to implement it. Of course, we take this recommendation first to highlight what we deem best practices in these areas, and we will continue to engage with member states in ensuring the take-up and the rollout.
Thank you. Ines, I think you wanted to come in on that point, or possibly the previous point.
I would like, thank you for raising this point. We are savings, we are local rooted, and the key is diversification and diversity of the banking sector. We cannot really coexist and exist with a model in which there will be just one model of doing banking. We need a big bank, we need investment banks yet, but we still need territories and local cooperative mutual savings retail in order to guarantee all the necessary, not only financial education, but financial inclusion. I really concur on you and thank you for having brought this issue here.
Thank you so much, Marie-Sophie. I wanted to come to you because I did promise I would come back to you on pensions, and it has been about half an hour and I haven't come back to you yet on pensions. So on the pensions topic, that's another place where countries have different starting points, but also possibly different intended destinations, given that in some countries, it's not actually anticipated that the elderly can be self-sufficient. The elderly are part of a multi-generational family group, and the objective isn't that you can run your own P&L at 90, it's that you live with your children and you're taken care of. So how do you think about trying to improve retirement outcomes across such a diverse group of countries?
Yeah, so I think even though the cultures around retirement planning and savings and so on are different across countries, I think one important part is all European countries face severe demographic change. And some of these systems need to be reconsidered because it might not be feasible anymore for children to fully take care of their parents if there is more and more, let me say, more and more parents and less children, right? So if you think of this from a broader economic perspective, we really need to leverage financial investment here because it's just not going to cut it anymore to rely on your family. I mean, it's also going to be a burden on the children, but it's also going to be difficult for the parents. So, but what I do think is important, and I think that was also an insight from the report, is that financial planning and money and everything around it is also very emotional. It sparks emotional responses in people. So I think policies that aim to encourage retirement planning, whether it's auto-enrollment or whether it's through different vehicles, really needs to cater also to the people that it's supposed to be for. And it's needs to be communicated in a way that takes away fears from people. It needs to be communicated in a way that people feel like they are included and that it fits their own cultural and social norms. So I think since we have such a diverse field across different EU member states, I think it's also really important for those member states to have flexibility in how they want to implement recommendations by the Commission, which I think are also important to have common recommendations, of course, to bring a lot of member states to the same level, but how they get to that same level might mean something different for every single one.
Thank you. So Philippe, I want to bring you in here because sometimes I feel as if there is a social contract in Europe that you will be taken care of, that things will be okay. So is pensions almost a game of chicken? And is that a bit of an opposition to what the Commission's trying to do? Because if you don't fully fund your pension, in most European countries, the expectation is the state will take care of you. And if that leads to massive increased public spending in 20, 30, 40 years' time, I think people think that will happen. Like in Europe, I mean, I lived in the US for a time, but the expectation there was if you didn't look after yourself, you'd be on the street when you were 75. In Europe, that's not how the society works. So do people think that if they just do nothing, the state, Big Brother or something will come in and take care of them?
Well, I think as for the Commission of Pensions is a really important topic, and we have taken the habit of traveling to the member states to get first-hand feedback on the concerns of stakeholders. And what she's trying to do in that context is to talk to a variety of stakeholders, and we get a first-hand feeling of how sensitive the topic of pension and how emotional and heated the debates around pensions can be. So I think from our perspective, of course, the way pension systems are set up is the prerogative of the member states. What we are focusing on is working with different stakeholders to raise awareness, to communicate on the importance of this topic. And financial literacy, of course, this is an important component of financial literacy work. And what we can also do is offer opportunities on the educative front in developing pension tracking systems also in putting products at the disposal of retail savers, that will be an attractive alternative for them to look into. And that's why we announced in the Savings and Investment Union strategy office that we're going to look at the regulatory framework of some of these products, be it the PEP or be it IROPS, to assess what hasn't worked so far and how we can really increase the appetite for take-up of these types of products. But it is an incremental exercise and a progressive exercise.
Thank you. So we have time. I'm going to check first if anyone else in the room has any comments or observations that they would like to share. Yeah, we got another gentleman in a suit. If we could get the mic back to you, sir. Thank you so much, Ines. Sorry, I've got a bit of a mic shortage going on.
Thank you. I would like to pose a question for Philippe related to the upcoming recommendation of the EU Commission on the Savings and Investment Account, a new financial instrument which is aimed to foster the movement from retail investment savings to different financial instruments to invest in the capital markets. The question is that this new financial instrument is recommended for the EU members to be regulated with tax incentives. But as you know, since the harmonization of direct taxation within the European Union is not existing and it's not expected, I am afraid that we are going to enter into a scenario with 27 different savings and investment accounts with 27 different tax treatments. So the question is, don't you think that we have a problem with a possible breach of the free movement of capitals and the free provision of financial services within the single market with this possible scenario? And the question is, did the Commission at any time consider the possibility to propose a different legal instrument compulsory for the EU members instead of a recommendation and maybe an EU directive?
Yes, I think these are very interesting questions and very important questions that of course we've assessed before deciding on the appropriate way forward. I think on the choice of legal instrument, the reason why we've opted for a recommendation is twofold. First, because there's already many very successful examples out there, and we did, of course, not want to interfere with them or trigger changes that may diminish their success. And also because of the urgency, because if we start a legislative negotiation process at this stage, it's going to take a while for that to be agreed and rolled out. And we do think there's a joint sentiment of urgency on taking the measures quickly. And in our view, that's why the most effective way forward was to identify what has worked well and then leave it to the member states to implement those. The truth is also that tax systems are very different in the member states, and we need to cater for that. And that is why we've been very careful in phrasing the recommendation in this manner. Of course, any measures that member states introduce will always be under conditions that they respect the free movement of capital. But I do not immediately see if the tax rate is a different one, or if the way you give the tax advantage is a different one, how that would necessarily impede the free flow of capital in Europe. You would hold the instrument in an account, you would get a tax incentive for that, and that depends on your member state of residence, which is also the one where you would be paying your taxes.
Thank you. So we are coming up close to coffee break time, and I have one final question for all of the panelists. And that is, and I'm going to ask you to answer this in 1 minute or less ideally, what does success in financial literacy and the Savings Investment Union look like to you? If we're sitting here in 5 years' time, how will we know that we've worked and it's done a good job? Marie-Sophie, I'll come to you first. I'll just give you this mic.
Yeah, I'm going to be super short on this. I think there's a few points. I think one big one that I personally find very important is closing the gender gap in it. The next one is closing the income gap. So basically making sure that lower income people catch up to those that already have higher incomes and already save. So basically it's about closing gaps here. And of course, closing the retirement gap as good as possible across all different demographics.
I would say that I pretty much am aligned, but in 5 years from now, I hope we will gather again and we'll talk on a practical way without a lot of ideologism, and to maybe have a more volume to comment on.
Thank you. Philippe.
I do think we at the beginning of a journey here, and we have announced a comprehensive set of actions that we believe will show real differences on the ground. It is about empowering. It is about giving people opportunities and giving them the tools to make the right decisions. And I would also share the hope that by the end of or at least by the midterm review, we'll already see some progress that we can be proud of and that can inform the next steps in our initiatives.
Thank you so much. So we're at the beginning of the journey, but we are at the end of the panel, and we are at the end of this morning's panels. So I think hopefully the tea and coffee and biscuits or whatever is ready by now. So with that, I will thank you for being such an attentive audience, for your questions, comments and remarks, and much thanks to my panelists for all of their contributions. Thank you.
Just a quick message for the people who are attending the meeting from online. We stop here. We have a coffee break, and we'll start back again around 11:30. Thank you.
Imagine investing just €100 a month from the age of 20. You could retire with more money than someone starting at 30 and investing double. Welcome to the world of compound interest, where time is your greatest asset. Navigating investments can be a confusing experience, but the right financial guidance makes all the difference. Whether you're dreaming of buying a home, securing your child's education, or retiring comfortably, it starts with smart decisions today. This video explores how a financial advisor can help you start early, invest wisely, avoid pitfalls, and achieve your long-term life goals. Technology is reshaping finance. Multiple digital solutions help take financial decisions easily and at lower costs. For example, exchange-traded funds called ETFs have become popular, allowing investors to diversify and keep costs low. This digital revolution has democratized investing. However, so much information can be overwhelming, and not all information and advice offered is in your best interest. It can sometimes be hard to tell investment opportunities from scams. For example, the allure of quick profits through cryptocurrencies and trendy stocks can lead to impulsive decisions and significant losses. In this complex environment, a qualified financial advisor becomes your best ally. Imagine a life where financial stress no longer holds you back from achieving your goals. A good financial plan is the foundation of this freedom. A financial advisor can help plan for the long run and use the power of compound interest. However, financial advisors operate under various models, so look for the right fit. Some advisors or their employer earn commissions when you invest in products they recommend, which, in essence, are recurring fees paid indirectly by you. Others follow a fee-only model, where you only pay up front. Under any model, a trusted financial advisor should always act in your best interest, so from the very start, ask them to be transparent. Inquire what fees and commissions your advisor or the bank receives. Understand how these costs impact your returns in the long run. Small fee differences can compound over time and reduce your returns. It is always a good idea to compare product offerings from various financial institutions to find the best fit for you, or to get a fee-only advisor. In your journey to financial freedom, your advisor should be your ally. Before you choose your advisor, verify their qualifications and choose a professional who values ethics and understands your unique needs. Just as only licensed doctors are authorized to prescribe medicine, financial advice can't be provided without the necessary professional qualifications. Remember, certified advisors have to follow a strict code of conduct that obliges them to work in your interest. Red flags include unauthorized individuals presenting themselves as advisors, promises of risk-free profits, failing to address your personal goals, or pressuring you into hasty decisions. The right advisor listens, explains clearly, and prioritizes your best interests. Being prepared ensures every meeting with your advisor is productive. Define your priorities, organize your financial documents, and come ready to engage in meaningful discussions about your future. Ask yourself, what are my goals? What is my investment horizon? Am I okay with risk if it improves longer-term outcomes? Advisors should rely on these insights to choose suitable products that reflect your needs. Influencers can motivate and robo-advisors can simplify, but both have limitations. Verify claims, avoid chasing risky trends, and remember, your situation is unique, requiring a personalized strategy. Inclusive markets help everyone build a brighter future. From investing in innovative SMEs to the green transition, financial advisors connect you to these opportunities. Help is closer than you think. Financial health checks, pro bono advice, and education programs are here to support you. Reach out to your National Financial Planning Association or Investor Association to take the first steps. Imagine investing just €100 a month from the age of 20. You could retire with more money than someone starting at 30 and investing double. Welcome to the world of compound interest, where time is your greatest asset. Navigating investments can be a confusing experience, but the right financial guidance makes all the difference. Whether you're dreaming of buying a home, securing your child's education, or retiring comfortably, it starts with smart decisions today. This video explores how a financial advisor can help you start early, invest wisely, avoid pitfalls, and achieve your long-term life goals. Technology is reshaping finance. Multiple digital solutions help take financial decisions easily and at lower costs. For example, exchange-traded funds called ETFs have become popular, allowing investors to diversify and keep costs low. This digital revolution has democratized investing. However, so much information can be overwhelming, and not all information and advice offered is in your best interest. It can sometimes be hard to tell investment opportunities from scams. For example, the allure of quick profits through cryptocurrencies and trendy stocks can lead to impulsive decisions and significant losses. In this complex environment, a qualified financial advisor becomes your best ally. Imagine a life where financial stress no longer holds you back from achieving your goals. A good financial plan is the foundation of this freedom. A financial advisor can help plan for the long run and use the power of compound interest. However, financial advisors operate under various models, so look for the right fit. Some advisors or their employer earn commissions when you invest in products they recommend, which, in essence, are recurring fees paid indirectly by you. Others follow a fee-only model, where you only pay up front. Under any model, a trusted financial advisor should always act in your best interest, so from the very start, ask them to be transparent. Inquire what fees and commissions your advisor or the bank receives. Understand how these costs impact your returns in the long run. Small fee differences can compound over time and reduce your returns. It is always a good idea to compare product offerings from various financial institutions to find the best fit for you or to get a fee-only advisor. In your journey to financial freedom, your advisor should be your ally. Before you choose your advisor, verify their qualifications and choose a professional who values ethics and understands your unique needs. Just as only licensed doctors are authorized to prescribe medicine, financial advice can't be provided without the necessary professional qualifications. Remember, certified advisors have to follow a strict code of conduct that obliges them to work in your interest. Red flags include unauthorized individuals presenting themselves as advisors, promises of risk-free profits, failing to address your personal goals, or pressuring you into hasty decisions. The right advisor listens, explains clearly, and prioritizes your best interests. Being prepared ensures every meeting with your advisor is productive. Define your priorities, organize your financial documents, and come ready to engage in meaningful discussions about your future. Ask yourself, what are my goals? What is my investment horizon? Am I okay with risk if it improves longer-term outcomes? Advisors should rely on these insights to choose suitable products that reflect your needs. Influencers can motivate and robo-advisors can simplify, but both have limitations. Verify claims, avoid chasing risky trends, and remember, your situation is unique, requiring a personalized strategy. Inclusive markets help everyone build a brighter future. From investing in innovative SMEs to the green transition, financial advisors connect you to these opportunities. Help is closer than you think. Financial health checks, pro bono advice, and education programs are here to support you. Reach out to your National Financial Planning Association or Investor Association to take the first steps. Imagine investing just €100 a month from the age of 20. You could retire with more money than someone starting at 30 and investing double. Welcome to the world of compound interest, where time is your greatest asset. Navigating investments can be a confusing experience, but the right financial guidance makes all the difference. Whether you're dreaming of buying a home, securing your child's education, or retiring comfortably, it starts with smart decisions today. This video explores how a financial advisor can help you start early, invest wisely, avoid pitfalls, and achieve your long-term life goals. Technology is reshaping finance. Multiple digital solutions help take financial decisions easily and at lower costs. For example, exchange-traded funds called ETFs have become popular, allowing investors to diversify and keep costs low. This digital revolution has democratized investing. However, so much information can be overwhelming, and not all information and advice offered is in your best interest. It can sometimes be hard to tell investment opportunities from scams. For example, the allure of quick profits through cryptocurrencies and trendy stocks can lead to impulsive decisions and significant losses. In this complex environment, a qualified financial advisor becomes your best ally. Imagine a life where financial stress no longer holds you back from achieving your goals. A good financial plan is the foundation of this freedom. A financial advisor can help plan for the long run and use the power of compound interest. However, financial advisors operate under various models, so look for the right fit. Some advisors or their employer earn commissions when you invest in products they recommend, which, in essence, are recurring fees paid indirectly by you. Others follow a fee-only model, where you only pay up front. Under any model, a trusted financial advisor should always act in your best interest, so from the very start, ask them to be transparent. Inquire what fees and commissions your advisor or the bank receives. Understand how these costs impact your returns in the long run. Small fee differences can compound over time and reduce your returns. It is always a good idea to compare product offerings from various financial institutions to find the best fit for you or to get a fee-only advisor. In your journey to financial freedom, your advisor should be your ally. Before you choose your advisor, verify their qualifications and choose a professional who values ethics and understands your unique needs. Just as only licensed doctors are authorized to prescribe medicine, financial advice can't be provided without the necessary professional qualifications. Remember, certified advisors have to follow a strict code of conduct that obliges them to work in your interest. Red flags include unauthorized individuals presenting themselves as advisors, promises of risk-free profits, failing to address your personal goals, or pressuring you into hasty decisions. The right advisor listens, explains clearly, and prioritizes your best interests. Being prepared ensures every meeting with your advisor is productive. Define your priorities, organize your financial documents, and come ready to engage in meaningful discussions about your future. Ask yourself, what are my goals? What is my investment horizon? Am I okay with risk if it improves longer-term outcomes? Advisors should rely on these insights to choose suitable products that reflect your needs. Influencers can motivate and robo-advisors can simplify, but both have limitations. Verify claims, avoid chasing risky trends, and remember, your situation is unique, requiring a personalized strategy. Inclusive markets help everyone build a brighter future. From investing in innovative SMEs to the green transition, financial advisors connect you to these opportunities. Help is closer than you think. Financial health checks, pro bono advice, and education programs are here to support you. Reach out to your national financial planning association or investor association to take the first steps. Imagine investing just €100 a month from the age of 20. You could retire with more money than someone starting at 30 and investing double. Welcome to the world of compound interest, where time is your greatest asset. Navigating investments can be a confusing experience, but the right financial guidance makes all the difference. Whether you're dreaming of buying a home, securing your child's education, or retiring comfortably, it starts with smart decisions today. This video explores how a financial advisor can help you start early, invest wisely, avoid pitfalls, and achieve your long-term life goals. Technology is reshaping finance. Multiple digital solutions help take financial decisions easily and at lower costs. For example, exchange-traded funds called ETFs have become popular, allowing investors to diversify and keep costs low. This digital revolution has democratized investing. However, so much information can be overwhelming, and not all information and advice offered is in your best interest. It can sometimes be hard to tell investment opportunities from scams. For example, the allure of quick profits through cryptocurrencies and trendy stocks can lead to impulsive decisions and significant losses. In this complex environment, a qualified financial advisor becomes your best ally. Imagine a life where financial stress no longer holds you back from achieving your goals. A good financial plan is the foundation of this freedom. A financial advisor can help plan for the long run and use the power of compound interest. However, financial advisors operate under various models, so look for the right fit. Some advisors or their employer earn commissions when you invest in products they recommend, which, in essence, are recurring fees paid indirectly by you. Others follow a fee-only model, where you only pay up front. Under any model, a trusted financial advisor should always act in your best interest, so from the very start, ask them to be transparent. Inquire what fees and commissions your advisor or the bank receives. Understand how these costs impact your returns in the long run. Small fee differences can compound over time and reduce your returns. It is always a good idea to compare product offerings from various financial institutions to find the best fit for you or to get a fee-only advisor. In your journey to financial freedom, your advisor should be your ally. Before you choose your advisor, verify their qualifications and choose a professional who values ethics and understands your unique needs. Just as only licensed doctors are authorized to prescribe medicine, financial advice can't be provided without the necessary professional qualifications. Remember, certified advisors have to follow a strict code of conduct that obliges them to work in your interest. Red flags include unauthorized individuals presenting themselves as advisors, promises of risk-free profits, failing to address your personal goals, or pressuring you into hasty decisions. The right advisor listens, explains clearly, and prioritizes your best interests. Being prepared ensures every meeting with your advisor is productive. Define your priorities, organize your financial documents, and come ready to engage in meaningful discussions about your future. Ask yourself, what are my goals? What is my investment horizon? Am I okay with risk if it improves longer-term outcomes? Advisors should rely on these insights to choose suitable products that reflect your needs. Influencers can motivate and robo-advisors can simplify, but both have limitations. Verify claims, avoid chasing risky trends, and remember, your situation is unique, requiring a personalized strategy. Inclusive markets help everyone build a brighter future. From investing in innovative SMEs to the green transition, financial advisors connect you to these opportunities. Help is closer than you think. Financial health checks, pro bono advice, and education programs are here to support you. Reach out to your National Financial Planning Association or Investor Association to take the first steps. Imagine investing just €100 a month from the age of 20. You could retire with more money than someone starting at 30 and investing double. Welcome to the world of compound interest, where time is your greatest asset. Navigating investments can be a confusing experience, but the right financial guidance makes all the difference. Whether you're dreaming of buying a home, securing your child's education, or retiring comfortably, it starts with smart decisions today. This video explores how a financial advisor can help you start early, invest wisely, avoid pitfalls, and achieve your long-term life goals. Technology is reshaping finance. Multiple digital solutions help take financial decisions easily and at lower costs. For example, exchange-traded funds called ETFs have become popular, allowing investors to diversify and keep costs low. This digital revolution has democratized investing. However, so much information can be overwhelming, and not all information and advice offered is in your best interest. It can sometimes be hard to tell investment opportunities from scams. For example, the allure of quick profits through cryptocurrencies and trendy stocks can lead to impulsive decisions and significant losses. In this complex environment, a qualified financial advisor becomes your best ally. Imagine a life where financial stress no longer holds you back from achieving your goals. A good financial plan is the foundation of this freedom. A financial advisor can help plan for the long run and use the power of compound interest. However, financial advisors operate under various models, so look for the right fit. Some advisors or their employer earn commissions when you invest in products they recommend, which, in essence, are recurring fees paid indirectly by you. Others follow a fee-only model, where you only pay up front. Under any model, a trusted financial advisor should always act in your best interest, so from the very start, ask them to be transparent. Inquire what fees and commissions your advisor or the bank receives. Understand how these costs impact your returns in the long run. Small fee differences can compound over time and reduce your returns. It is always a good idea to compare product offerings from various financial institutions to find the best fit for you or to get a fee-only advisor. In your journey to financial freedom, your advisor should be your ally. Before you choose your advisor, verify their qualifications and choose a professional who values ethics and understands your unique needs. Just as only licensed doctors are authorized to prescribe medicine, financial advice can't be provided without the necessary professional qualifications.
Okay, we're ready to start again with the second part of the morning. Now we have the panel on empowering financial advisor to connect the EU citizen with capital markets. I will give immediately the floor to Josep Soler Alberti, who is the EFPA Board Director and EFPA Spain Executive Director, who will be managing the panel, coordinating the panel, where Jacopo Borgognone, Senior Advisor for Capital Markets from EBF, will be taking part, Andrea Liesenfeld, DG FISMA, B3, Retail Financial Services, Alexandra Makanishka, Managing Director of Benefit Finance, and William Vidonia, Head of Conduct of Business Insurance Europe. Joseph, you have the floor.
Yes, ready to have the panelists go up. Thank you. In the meantime, thank you very much to all attendees today here, and of course the organizers and the panelists of this second roundtable. But before that, I would like to thank somebody who hasn't been thanked already yet, and he's really the heart of the organization of this day, which is Stefka Topalova, which is the Secretary General of EFPA Europe. And please, let's thanks and applause for her work. EFPA Europe is a small organization with a lighter structure, and all the work really sits on her, and he is the one that is mainly the responsible that today we are here today. Okay, we have theoretically 4 panelists, because one of them has had personal problems and he cannot be with us, which is Rasmus Andresen, the member of the European Parliament. We have with us, I think it's Alexander is already here. Good. And Jacobo is here, and William. William has arrived. Perfect. We have the 4 panelists of this second roundtable today. It's great. Well, I plan to start saying, well, we now have, and we know everything about financial health. Now is the time to see in which way financial health is going to help to the objective, so the European Commission, or mainly to the main objective, which is to develop savings and investment union. But the previous roundtable has already dealt with different issues of this savings and investment union, and it is logical because, as a matter of fact, in Europe, in the financial sector, a lot is being organized now around the project of savings and investment union. But there's still a lot of things to talk about that. And we now can confront these financial objectives in the financial sector. Basically, let's remember, increase investment resources for all that investment that is needed in Europe in the following years. As a help to complement retirement pensions, also a point that has been already mentioned here, and also to provide alternative finance to SMEs. This is as a sub-objectives of the main objectives, which is how we increase competitiveness in the European Union. And as a complement to this objective, what is the role of financial advice in all their ways to be developed in the, what is the role of financial advice to channel these savings into investments, or better, in which way we help to transform savers into investors and overcome an important and a very important European deficit. To talk about that, well, we have already introduced the panelists. I'm not going to that. I'm going to give each of the panelists 5-6 minutes that you need to introduce your initial vision on the subject, and then we can go to the questions and answer debate, and in general in questions or particular questions for each of the panelists. Then I think it's better to start from the most generic to Andrea Liesenfeld, which is the Deputy Director at DG FISMA on retail financial service. Thank you, Andrea, because this is already the second or third time that we ask you to participate in an EFPA event. To start, in that way, we will know a little better what is the position of the European Commission, and then to go to the private sector and to see in which way we say the contrary to what you say. No? Okay, Andrea, please.
Does that work? Yeah. Does it? Very good. So hello, good morning, everyone. Just to be clear, I'm not deputy director. I'm the deputy head of unit. Don't want to take too much. And so I'm the deputy head of unit of the retail financial services unit and the team leader on retail financial services. And in this capacity, I've been responsible for leading and coordinating within DG FISMA the retail investment strategy. So this is one of the parts, and maybe probably the biggest part, that I've been putting my time into in the last years. So indeed, I don't have much more to say on the SIU, because you've just been listening to our cabinet, and so you've heard it all from the source. Why we believe SIU is very important, and I guess we all agree on this. It's key for people, but it's also key for economic competitiveness, for making sure the money goes where we need the money. And this is, I mean, it was always super important, and it's getting more and more important, of course, also thinking about geopolitics. So how do we want to go about? You've heard we have, and you all know, we've done a communication on SIU not too long ago, and today we're going to have some additional measures that had been announced on financial literacy strategy. We're going to have the recommendation on the SIA, but we've also, of course, and I've already mentioned this before, made a proposal during the last mandate, of course, but this is an important part, nevertheless, of the SIU, the retail investment strategy. And I guess this is a very important piece of legislation for financial advisors. Now, what is our idea on financial advice, and why have we then made some suggestions in the RIS as we have made them? Well, we believe that advice is crucially important. It is important, and it will remain important. I mean, we have digitalization there. We will have robo-advice, which is having track. We also have guidance, which is also very important for getting people into investing. But this might not do the whole trick. So we do need financial advice. We do need people that explain to the clients why is it important to put their savings into capital markets and what they should best invest in. So I do believe we also probably all agree on this. And we do believe what is important is that this is simple, that is cheap, available, but we also need to make sure it's good advice. And today, this is not always available. You will today have advice which is simple. You will have advice which is not necessarily cheap, but you might believe it's cheap. And you have often good advice, but maybe not always. That's at least what our impact assessment has concluded. And for this reason, we have tried to put some measures in place. One advice which is sometimes difficult to find is independent advice. Independent advice, not based on inducements, is sometimes very difficult to find in many areas. In Germany, the number of, I mean, it's a huge country, huge amount of people, but the number of independent advisors is very limited. Why is this? Well, they don't really have a business model against inducement-based advice. So we've tried to push this a little bit, to give them a little bit of a better chance by suggesting simple advice. Whether this would do the trick, look, it's a hope, it's a try to make it simple, easy, independent. Whether this is going to survive the negotiations, we don't know. But of course, that was an important idea. We would have wanted to at least make sure that independent advice is available so that clients have a choice. We've also suggested additional measures. We have suggested to raise professional qualifications to make sure the investors are good. We have suggested to have for IDD something that doesn't exist yet, which exists in the MiFID area, that if you call yourself independent, you cannot take inducements. This exists in MiFID, but not yet in IDD. We have suggested that. And we've suggested the client best interest test. Now, in the discussion before, we've heard that this is all, the client journey is all very complicated. And we do agree, it has to be simple. But, as I said, it also needs to be good. And I would like to challenge you a bit. Does it have to be complicated today? I want to speak about my personal experience. Maybe you have this yourself. You can go through the suitability assessment in a very quick way. You can do this online. You can do this with a number of questions, and you can be done within 10 minutes. But you can also spend 1 hour and longer at a bank going through a long questionnaire. This shouldn't be the case. If this leads to any deterring people, then this is not the right way. But it doesn't have to be like that. If there are ways we can simplify this, absolutely, we would be absolutely in favor of doing that. Now, the client best interest, you're going to ask me, why are you suggesting anything additionally, given that it's already complicated? Now, the client best interest test doesn't require one additional question to the retail investor. The client best interest test is just trying to limit the discretion a little bit of the advisor. And why do we think this is needed? Well, we have recently actually also had some mystery shopping, which showed that whether you do a proper suitability assessment doesn't necessarily guarantee that you will recommend the good product. It might, but it might not. And therefore, we felt like it is important to spell out the obligation that exists today, which is to act in the best interest of the client, to spell this out a little bit clearer what it means. Of course, we've again tried to simplify this, but to keep the gist of it. And we think this is important. Whether this is going to survive negotiations, who knows? But that is the rationale behind it. And yeah, look, this is where we are. I personally, I think it's very important that we do something about it and that we are clear. Why do we do this? Why is it important that we think we need to act in the best interest? Why do we think it's important that people get the right products, which are not too expensive and where they actually get something out of it? Well, if they don't, why should they invest? They're not going to come back if they get products which where they don't benefit from. That's my...
Thank you, Andrea.
That's the end of it.
Thanks, Andrea.
But very happy to discuss.
Let's go to EBF. Jacopo, could you take the floor?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So just by mean of introduction, very quickly. So I'm Jacopo, responsible for capital markets policy at the European Banking Federation, so the EU umbrella association representing 32 national banking associations. So just to start, I thought I would sort of articulate my introduction around two main points. I was actually thinking about one, but listening to you today, I wanted to introduce another one. So in no particular order, I'll start from the latest one, which is again around the role of advisors. I think so the statistics you have showed this morning, I think they convey a pretty clear message. One struck me personally, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there is one passage in the report where it says that among the sort of chief goals for savings is planning for holidays is 44%. So there's a bit of a disconnect in a world where here thinking about the pension time bomb and the fact that, you know, people my age won't be able to rely on, you know, Pillar 1 pension systems for their retirement. We are chiefly planning for holidays with our savings. It's sort of self-evident. There's a lot of gap to be covered, which leads me to sort of a strong personal conviction that the EBF shares that the role of advice has to be strengthened, and long-term planning, especially for different reasons. Your industry is sort of challenged with a number of developments that require careful attention. AI is one of them. The value of advice for us for long-term planning is especially that of helping sort of us people adopt a holistic approach to their finances, so not just planning for long-term goals, but also sort of expense management, money management, etc. To help people make use of efficient tax vehicles. It's also one of the sort of chief values of advice, and especially I would say two things: building trust and sort of making sure that there is an entry point for people who have not started investing yet. This is, I think, key. These trust and entry points are actually, I think, one of the two key objectives of the SIU. And obviously in EBF we have discussed with our members what's going to be the sort of the main value also of the savings account, investment savings account proposal that is coming out. And I'm personally believe that irrespective of how it's sort of designed and whether or not it will be applied in the same way across member states, its chief value is that it offers yet another entry point that is closer to the sort of attitude of most European savers, which is to keep the money in an account. Why? Because it's risk-free, and we are extremely risk-averse in Europe at the moment. It's not cost-free, but it's risk-free. So again, great value of advice and financial planners. The role of EFPA in this is, I think, particularly important because leveraging the competences of advisors is one way to cope with industry developments such as AI. So great shout out to the work you're doing as well. Another quick point, but I think I want to make this point, and it's been, the CMU or SIU has been 10 years plus in the making, and it may appear self-evident to most of you, the point I'm about to make, but I can assure you it's not self-evident everywhere in Brussels or across Europe, and is that, banks are fan of the Capital Markets Union, the Savings and Investment Union, and of sort of moving savings into markets. That is something that works for everyone. It works for the investor, for the saver, because of course you can just start making use of compound returns over time. You can sort of you can counter effects of sort of monetary risk of inflation. It works for banks. It works for banks for two chief reasons. One is there's a business case for banks. It's good for compound fee generation. It's good for client fidelization and loyalty. It's good for diversification of income streams for the bank. One example, more saving tap into the market. Companies are able to acquire more investment, they produce more, and they may return us to the bank in the form of corporate deposits. So there's a number of reasons why the business case works, but also developing and deepening capital markets is a strong, sort of priority for banks, for the EBF, because banks are not competitors to markets. They are users and service providers of markets. We are advisors, we are issuers, we are investors ourselves. So a number of reasons why I feel it's always great to start by reiterating the message that banks are a big fan of capital markets and the new Savings and Investment Union Action Plan. So I'll stop here and happy to go into the specifics.
Thanks, Jacobo. It's your turn, William.
All right. Transparency is very important, right? So out of transparency, just like to explain that I represent Insurance Europe. So this is the European Insurance Federation. So that's done, clear and simple. Just a word, perhaps, starting to say how grateful I am for EFPA and Better Finance to co-organize that event. It seems the date is not really a coincidence, right? I think this is extremely timely, so well done. Also well done for the research that you conducted together. I think listening to what was said this morning, reading also the report, at least the executive summary of the report, I can see that we got a huge challenge in Europe, and I think that only confirms something that we knew before. Europeans are really good at saving money, but we're not investing enough. And I think if there's one thing that we need to change, it's really the investment culture in the EU. We need to improve that very much. And I think that what you're doing between EFPA and Better Finance to try and build bridges, to work together in that direction is actually extremely welcome. Because if we want to make progress, we really need to make sure that efforts are being taken all across the board. Now, from my perspective, from an insurance perspective, when I think about improving the investment culture, I think we need to take that from an holistic way. That's a word that we're using a lot, holistic. For me, that simply means that we can't really look at one specific issue in isolation. We need to look at different types of challenges all together and address them. In the same way that the Commission is doing with the Savings and Investment Union. We need to look at the offer side, so the products. We need to look also at a consumer journey. We need to look at advice. We need to look also at the financial education. So if you don't mind, I'd like to take that one by one. The first one is the product side, the offer. Here I'm really looking forward to reading the Commission's recommendation on the savings and investment account. If there's one message I would like to convey about that one is that when you get a very strong card in your hands, when you get a winning card, a king or an ace, you play it. You don't let it gather dust. And what I mean here is insurance. We got a huge diversity of life insurance product, pensions product, catering for the different needs of consumers across Europe, for the different types of risk profile as well. Insurance are products that are not only providing investment opportunities, but also financial guarantees. And this element is exactly what savers who are risk adverse in a huge majority in Europe need to their investing in the capital market. And we got the insurance protection element, so risk biometric risk coverage, which is exactly what we need to address the increasing protection gap across Europe. And finally, we got a super dynamic, super diversified and wide distribution network. We got financial advisors, we got brokers, we got agents, we got banks, we got direct sales. They can sell or advise in a digital way, face-to-face. We see a number of advisors being really connected to local communities and very close to people. The second point is about the consumer journey. And I think here we got a golden opportunity with the retail investment strategy to try and streamline that journey. I mean, if I look at the insurance perspective today, it's almost mission impossible for a consumer to purchase an insurance-based investment product. It takes extremely long, it's super complex, and it's super burdensome. And of course, that's an issue for the distributors, but also for the consumers. And the same goes for the disclosures. I think, everyone agrees that today we got an issue from a regulatory perspective, which is information overload. Can we take the retail investment strategy as a golden opportunity to look at that and try to streamline these disclosures and make sure that they focus on what matters to consumers? There was indeed mystery shopping that was done by EOPA recently. And one of the key findings is that having a longer, more burdensome, more complex purchasing process for the consumer doesn't lead necessarily to a better consumer outcome. And it's pretty much the opposite, in fact. So let's draw lesson and let's try to address that in a constructive way. Then the financial advice. I think everyone agrees here that it's absolutely crucial in the Savings and Investment Union. And it's crucial also to make sure that people are moving from investment attention to investment actions. And for me, that's absolutely necessary then to preserve access to advice. That's also important as part of the retail investment strategy, and that we keep this diversity of distribution networks. As I was saying before, I think one of the wealth in insurance is that you get so many different types of distribution channels, and that's a wealth, and we need to preserve that for the future. And finally, financial education. Again, I'm really looking forward to reading what the Commission is going to produce with their strategy. I've been waiting for a very long time for that document, I have to say. You know, in Insurance Europe, we've been calling on the Commission to make efforts and be ambitious with that topic for years. So we're actually very pleased to see that, you know, things are being done now. I'm really hoping to see the European Commission putting a bit of pressure on member states to move forward with a financial education program. I hope also that the Commission is going, and I hope this is not recorded, I hope the Commission is going to be putting a bit of pressure on the European supervisory authorities, because I'd like to remind everyone that the ESAs have actually in their mandate to deliver on financial education, and I don't really see that in reality. So we need to press them to do a bit more there. And I hope the European Commission, and I know there are limitations in terms of competencies there, but I hope the European Commission is also going to take their own initiative to try and do something on financial education and promote it. I don't know, that could be supporting, you know, the exchange of good practices between member states. That could be helping the OECD also in their competence framework. That could be also putting a bit of pressure on member states to include financial education in the school curricula. And one point that is very important also from an insurance perspective is the inclusion of insurance literacy in this financial education strategy, because every time we speak about financial education, we think about banking, budgeting, investment, but very often insurance is overlooked. And I think that's a strategic mistake to overlook insurance. It's all about risk awareness, risk management, risk understanding, long-term planning, retirement. So everything that is super important for people well-being and financial resilience. So for me, if we really want to be successful, we need to act on these 4 different elements. And that will hopefully help to change and improve the investment culture in Europe. And also to make the link with the report, it should help also in improving the financial health of Europeans.
Thank you, William. Now it's time to Alexandra to talk on behalf of the users of all this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you once again to EFPA for the common project and the research that we have done that has some very interesting findings. And to the question, if we can have it all, if we can have good quality advice, if you can have investor protection, digitalization, I think it is possible under the condition that we really design the policies quite well. And with that, of course, comes the policy of the European Commission, the proposal on the risks, which is very valuable. And we also share the hope of Andrea that the very good, valuable elements of risks are not going to get lost in the negotiations. But high quality advice for us, high quality advice means that it delivers good outcomes for consumers. And I think that the context of good outcomes for consumers is the most important one when we talk about savings and investments union, channeling the investments into the real economy and activating and encouraging retail investors to invest. Because if they do not have good outcomes, if they do not have the good, real positive returns, what is actually the incentive for them to invest? Unfortunately, with the annual report of Better Finance on the real returns of pension savings, we have been talking about pensions and the pension time bomb quite a lot today, shows that most of the EU citizens are invested rather badly and that the products that they are invested in are not bringing good results for them. What does it mean for them? It means that they will not achieve pension adequacy. And we agree with EIOPA very much when EIOPA says that actually the biggest risk of an investment product is not achieving the pension adequacy and the investment goal for retirement. So with this, we think that financial education and financial wealth are very important. But in order to get into the financial wealth, financial education alone is not going to do the trick. And as much as I'm looking forward also to the financial education strategy today, I'm looking quite much more to the recommendation on the ISK, because actually the ISK, the investment saving account, this was one of the first topics that when I joined Better Finance in 2017, we were meeting with the Commission and we were advocating for doing something about it, promoting it more. We have seen already back then that actually Sweden was one of the countries where the citizens could count on the better outcomes when it comes to pensions. And we were also informed, and we knew that it was very much tied also to the ISK. So I'm looking very much towards that, and to see that 7 years later it was possible to finally do something about it. And it's maybe only recommendation, but still we hope it could be a game changer if the member states have the courage to learn from Sweden. Financial education, financial advice, and digitalization. We think this is the mix of three things that really can change the situation of many EU savers. And financial advice probably is one of the most important for us. So with financial education, it is of course the basis for everything in understanding some basic financial economic phenomena is the basis for a citizen also to be able to enter a meaningful dialogue with an advisor and to understand what the advisor is telling them. Is also very important for them to ask the right questions to the advisor. However, there is also research that shows that financial education alone is not going to do the trick for the citizens. One of those research projects was done for the Central Bank of Ireland, and it showed very clearly that there was no correlation between very high financial education of the citizen and taking proactive action. So Ireland has done quite big campaigns trying to inform citizens that they need to do something about supplementary pensions because the public pensions are not going to be enough. And there has not been much traction. So there has not been much change in the society. And the financially literate ones also have not undertaken any steps to do something about their pensions. So therefore, we believe that also auto-enrollment would be a good solution, driving the savings towards investment and going towards the direction of savings and investment union. But again, the condition for better finance here is that people and citizens would be enrolled into good quality products. For us, of course, it means good, decent returns. And when it comes to good, decent returns and different products that you could invest in, as William already mentioned, insurance products could be one of them. He mentioned also capital guarantees. We need to remember that capital guarantees are quite costly. So we need to really be able to provide very good performance to offset the cost of the capital guarantees. And from Better Finance report, we see that currently it is still not the case. When it comes to financial advice and financial advisors, how to improve the quality of financial advice, how to improve the access to advice, I think that Retail Investment Strategy had some very good proposals. One of them is, of course, the best interest test. Currently, retail investors and financial consumers in the EU pay a very high price of bad advice. We have also seen some of our colleagues from different organizations had already campaigns when they showed how high this price is. And we see it also again in our report when we look at the real returns that people are currently getting from their pension products. So with retail investment strategy in mind, apart from the best interest test, and we think it's crucial because in order to get good quality advice, the incentives of the advisors should be really aligned with the interest of the consumer or investor that goes to them. Currently, it's not always the case. There was also a big study from the Commission from 2018 that showed that most of EU citizens, when they search for advice, they would rather go to their bank advisor. And then at the end of this journey, they would rather be advised some of the products from a very limited portfolio from advisors, quite often complex products, not the simple ones. Almost never were they advised, for example, ETFs that are quite simple products. And in the study, it was also mentioned an experiment done when people were informed that during the process of the advice, some of their wealth would be transferred to the advisor because of the commission paid. Many people were actually not willing anymore to follow up on the advice. So we also should probably do something right now about raising awareness of people, how the commission-based system work. And definitely, as William also said, transparency is important. So very clear, also transparent information on how much the cost of inducements and commission is included in the final price of the advice process.
Thank you, Alessandra. Yeah. I think we will have time to go We have no more than 15, 20 minutes for the debate. Let's please just answer shortly, because there are a lot of topics. I think it's better you give your opinion shortly. Since Andrea has mentioned repeatedly the concept of independent financial advice, you talk a little bit more about quality financial advice. I would like to deal with a little bit that. When EFPA was created 25 years ago, let's be sincere, we were thinking at that time that independent or purely independent financial advice, fee-only financial advice, was going to dominate the distribution in the future. 25 years later, we have seen that some tries to go to independent financial advice has ended in no financial advice in certain places. And now more and more people is talking about, well, let's at least assure that there is transparency and control conflicts of interest. What do you think about that? I mean, should we still go for independent financial advice as we believe it should be all these years ago? I understood, Andrea, that this is still the position of the Commission, maybe.
Look, I mean, we see reality. There is not a lot of independent advice out there. But of course, independent advice is good. It's good because if you go to an independent advisor, you have to pay for it. Indeed, you understand what you pay. There you can be sure people understand. They pay. When you have the inducement and you have this explained somewhere, people might not understand. But when they have to pay directly an advisor, they will understand this. But then you have that these advisors, their interest is aligned with the client. So that is a good thing. But I'm not saying that necessarily everybody should only go to independent advisors. No, but it would be good to have a choice nevertheless. And that choice very often is not there because it's very difficult to actually find independent advisors today. Look, that's...
Alessandra, do you think that you're thinking that the right way? I mean, now that we need to convince the savers to become investors, we also need to tell them, and you need to pay to get this advice to become investors. Is that realistic, according to you?
Yes, well, for the time being, investor in any event pay. I do not pay. Yeah, and they do not pay for advice most of the time. They pay for the sales. So quite often the advisor, when they think they are going to advisor, they're going actually to the salesperson, and the salesperson is remunerated by the sales. So if the investor leaves then the room and they have not bought the product, the commission will not happen, even if they were advised on something. So I think, and the commission study showed it, most of the people do not understand that. They go there and they expect and they think they are getting advice free of charge. Well, in fact, they are going to be paid trailing commissions over the years. Then there is the question, will they afford advice or not? Somehow they are already affording this, so they are paying for the commissions already, so evidently they can afford it. The question, of course, is what if this fee is one-off and you have to pay it up front? And of course, this can be a problem for some of the consumers, but the finance has done a case study. We have taken the French market, we have taken an independent advisors from the French market and the fee they charge. And we have compared an investment of 10,000 euros and how this would play out for them, whether they would be paying with a trailing commission for the product, or if they would pay with an independent advice and a fee for that. And they were still much better off at the end of the day when they would pay for a fee-based advisor.
Yeah.
And if I just may add one thing, you mentioned also advice gap. We believe that currently there is advice gap in any event, since, like Andrea mentioned, in most of the member states, the access to good quality independent advice is very scarce. The choice is not there, and the people do not really have access to it. So they do have access to salespeople offering sales pitches, but they don't really have access to good quality advice.
Thank you. Just to close that subject, Jacopo, William, you believe that with transparency is the solution to all this situation now? Is enough? I think William claimed for that. Huh? Transparency, I mean.
Absolutely. Transparency, when it's well done, it can help in a number of different respects. Just to come back to advice, I think that's very important for everyone to understand that advice is actually not coming from free. This is a service that needs to be remunerated. By the way, even when there's no advice provided, there are a number of services provided by the financial advisor that needs to be remunerated. And I'm thinking in insurance about the demands and needs test. I'm thinking about disclosure provisions. I'm thinking about all the support during the claims settlement and management. Now there are different ways of remunerating advice. We know there's a commission-based system, there's a fee-based system. Is there one system that is better than the other one? I'm not entirely sure, actually. You know, with each of the different systems, you have pros and cons. One of the issues with the fee-based system is indeed the advice gap. I think the British experience has demonstrated that there is an issue with the advice gap in case of a fee-based system. And I think in the UK, they're still trying to overcome that issue. There's also the risk of an advice push. And the same in the commission-based system. You also have pros and cons. So the question for me is, how do you manage to mitigate the potential drawbacks of each of the different systems? So I don't think one system is better than the other one. As I was saying before, I'm actually claiming that diversity is good. So it's good to find on the market different types of distribution channels that can be remunerated in a different way. And then up to the consumer to make their choice. Transparency in both cases is very important. But the question is, how do you do transparency? And again, here the issue would be, the temptation would be to do too much transparency. I mean, we've seen it with the PRIPS-KID, for example. You know, you simply pile up different elements on which you want to be transparent. And at the end, in a PRIPS-KID, you have more than 20 cost elements that are being disclosed through this key information document, which means at the end that the consumer, you know,
overwhelm the consumer, right?
Completely overloaded, yes.
Jacobo, would you like to close this?
Yeah, no, thanks. I'll be telegraphic. I mean, I principle echo most of the points raised by William. It's a complex topic. I mean, I personally would observe that, you know, these were the same discussions we were having at least 2 years ago when the RIS was launched. And in the meantime, a lot has happened. Diversity is good. Consumer choice is good. We should work on that. Transparency is there. You know, inducements, for example, are well framed by the current MiFID framework. They need to be reported. They are itemized. They have to be linked to quality enhancement criteria in MiFID. So we think transparency in there, if, you know, there's always scope to work further on making sure that disclosures are well understood. That's, you know, obviously a good thing that we should be doing together. However, I think, you know, one thing we should focus on is really the entry points. Obviously, as William said, different ways of accessing investments are there. There's a fee-based advice model. There's an independent model. There's a self-execution model. They all have, you know, strengths and values. You know, the non-independent, let's call it this, the fee-based, sorry, the non-independent or commission-based model value. One of them could be, for example, that it actually leverages existing relationships with your bank, which is, again, speaks about that entry points that are the sort of policy priority of the SIU agenda. I mean, the point is execution. It's time for execution. It's time to sort of go and get idle savings. I've explained also before that this is a good thing for everyone, for banks included. So it's about those entry points, and then trust and money need time to sort of to work for the interest of the savers. So I'll stop there. Obviously, I hope it's clear, but
thank you. Change of question. More than a year ago, there was the Letta and Draghi reports, whatever. They said something very clear. We don't have a lot of time to do these kind of things. Now, Draghi, after 1 year of his report was published, and more since we knew what the report included, has said that he is really disappointed about the rhythm of advancing in all these issues. Is that he's just an alarmist? We have more time, then we should not be worried about that. What do you think? Are we in the right mood to do that? What is your evaluation of this initial CU development? And according to you, which should be the first priority now in that sense? Whoever.
So in opinion of Better Finance, I mean, the one and very big issue we have in the EU right now is really ticking pension time bomb. And we think this should be really tackled in the first step. When it comes to the sense of urgency, I think this should definitely be very clear to the member states. And as much as the European Commission can come up with good proposals, hopefully one of them we are going to see today on the ISK, ultimately it's the responsibility of the member states to deal with the topics and hopefully also learn from the good lessons they see in other countries. And here, of course, I think about Sweden. There is a good example. They have been very transparent and very vocal on what can be done and how it can be done to improve the situation of citizens, of how to make them and encourage them to invest. Simplicity, tax incentives are the way to go. And the question is if the other member states have really the guts, the willingness to do it.
Well, William? Andrea?
Right. Yes, of course. Yes, of course, I would agree with Mr. Draghi. We need to act and quickly. Of course, the challenge outside of Europe is huge. We see things changing there. And I think this is even more pressing for us to look inwards and make sure that we got a more integrated market within the European Union. That makes all the different initiatives in this SIU more pressing than ever. But at the same time, we should not mix, quick rapidity and quality. So we need to make sure that we move fast, but at the same time, we do it right. And that's really a difficult balance. I would not like to be, in the shoes of the colleagues from the European Commission now, because the pressure is really, really strong to deliver. There are a number of things that you can change overnight. We spoke about financial education, insurance literacy. This is taking time. That's an investment and a long-term one. The fact that people are risk adverse in Europe, this is not going to change overnight. So this is also something on which we need to start working, the sooner the better. One thing also I want to say, and that's connected to what we discussed before, is the advice. I think I completely agree with what was said before, but for advice to be helpful and useful, we need to make sure that advisors in the end can spend some time with their customers. And what is a bit worrying for me now is actually the increasing number of requirements that advisors need to comply with. Because the more tests, templates you need to fill in and you need to make, the less time you can spend with your customer. And of course, this is a concern for us because this is also creating a kind of tick-the-box culture where we need to move forward more towards a customer-oriented culture.
Anybody wants to say something about this, please, and then.
Yes, on that one, indeed. First of all, I would like to also get back on the issues on transparency. Now, we do agree that transparency is super important and that it's important to make it very clear and simple. For that reason, we have tried with the PRIPS kit to have a dashboard, to have it in the beginning, very clear what actually the costs are, the expected performance, just, very few parameters that might help you compare. But I can tell you already that can lead to opposition. You would think that's a very easy thing to accept because it's just transparency, but even that can lead to opposition, maybe because transparency is not always wanted. But I leave this to you. But the second thing I want to say about transparency, as I said, is key, but nevertheless, we have done also studies. Transparency, we have to be realistic about what it can achieve. Transparency is not the silver bullet for everything. Yeah.
Okay.
On the question of economics, look, it's not for me to say I'm not an economist. I'm a lawyer. I believe that it is important that we move. I mean, just looking at demographics, but of course, I'm in no place really to say this, but I'm pretty sure this is correct. But even more, how frustrating can it be that it's so difficult to move forward? We all agree that something has to be done, but then it's very difficult actually to do something. And on this topic that William has just said, I think we agreed to disagree on this. Yes, it has to be simple, but it can be done in a simple way. Put your questionnaire online, let your clients fill this in beforehand, and you have all the time with your clients then to discuss things. It can be done in a simple way.
Jacobo, if you don't mind, I will give you the floor also for the next question, and you can deal with anything of the previous one. Let's imagine that we are successful in convincing the savers that they need to invest better or invest more. Are they going really to invest in Europe, or this additional investing is going to go away? I put you an example that is we can see in each of our countries. Now it's, for instance, new investment funds devoted to defense companies. They are managed mostly by American companies, American money management companies, and most of this investment is going to US defense companies as well. Can we, that the problem is we maybe eventually are going to convince, but are they really going to invest in Europe? And how we convince, in addition, that they need to be investors, that they should invest more in Europe? But let's start by Jacobo.
No, I'll try to be quick. That's the question of the questions. I guess it's very, very, very difficult to answer shortly. So just briefly on the SAU, sense of urgency is absolutely there, fully shared. I think there's an issue of falling into the survivor biased trap there of not acting in time because it doesn't really hurt. We're talking about it, but people are not yet seeing, quote unquote, their sort of pension systems failing yet. So we know it's going to happen, but it's not seen yet. Therefore, it doesn't hurt. Therefore, it doesn't trigger grassroots movement yet. So there's a survivor bias problem to be overcome there collectively. On sort of, sort of moving European savings towards European companies is a laudable objective, is an industrial policy objective. It mostly depends on, for example, conditionalities attached to tax incentives deployed by member states. Member states have schemes, some of them are in place that do that, others do not. One of the key strengths of the ISK, for example, since we're talking a lot about it, is that it's actually quite open. And I would dare to say the tax incentive or the tax break is not even the main reason why the take-up of the ISK has been so impressive. Is first of all, they take 40 years to build an ecosystem surrounding of investment culture and trust. But also it's the sheer simplicity of opening and using it and the reporting that it's done for you. These are the key reasons why the ISK is so successful. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the EU being a net exporter of savings and a net importer of investment. I'm not sure, there's anything we can pull off in the short term to really change that. My personal view would be to get people started in investment is priority. More investments will flow in Europe, where we also become more investable ourselves when the returns generated by our sort of high innovative companies in Europe are there. And there is a innovation gap that Draghi has also very well underlined in his report in our economy, in our SME sector and so on. So it's a difficult question, but I guess get people started is the #1 priority.
Do you think anyone on that, or shall we? Okay.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question that comes up quite a lot, whether the EU investors should be forced, encouraged to invest in the EU. I think most of the EU citizens that live in Europe would like to see more investments into the infrastructure, education, and so on. So they would like to invest here. However, at the same time, they are very much concerned about the returns. They need the returns, as we said before, to achieve the pension adequacy. Therefore, quite often they do invest overseas, looking for good returns. So I would say, help us help you. And the financial industry, we talk a lot about the competitiveness, should also up their game and improve the competitiveness here. We know from reports from ESMA that retail investors pay 40% higher fees than institutional investors. So I think there is a lot of room for improvement in the EU to do something about the competitiveness and the returns here. And since we are talking about ISK, Sweden very clearly warns against forcing investors into certain sectors or geographical areas. They at some point did that. It did not work out. If it was, and I hope it is not, in the recommendations that are going to be published today, ISK, that was an example and a blueprint for the recommendations, would not be then included or would be out of it. So we would prefer that investors have choice where do they invest.
Can I go to Andrea or William first for the next question, which is on digitalization? It has been mentioned already that digitalization is an opportunity for spreading a little bit this need. But it's also a risk. And you know, when I was listening about independent financial advice, I was thinking, be careful, because maybe one day artificial intelligence could be considered very independent. Then, you know, some people will believe that an advice from AI, you know, is the solution for this independent thing. What do you think about risk of digitalization in addition to the obvious advantages that we have?
Okay, I'll go step by step.
Okay.
And I'll start first on commenting on the previous question. Just to remind that insurance is already attracting savers' money and channeling it to what we call productive investments. Insurance companies in Europe, they have 9.5 trillion euros of asset under management, and 70% of their investment in equities, in corporate and sovereign bonds are already made in the EU. Second point, the ESK, that's indeed something very interesting to look at. But if you really want to look at the Swedish success story, you also need to look at the endowment insurance. 6 million contracts in Sweden. And that is also contributing to the investment culture in the Swedish market. Then third point on transparency, I agree with you, Andrea, on that one. You are absolutely right that transparency is not a silver bullet. It can help to achieve a number of different things, but you need to take that as a complement to other types of initiatives. Completely supportive of the dashboard in the PRIPSKI idea. I think this is very important. But let's be honest, it's also because we did not manage to get a PRIPSKI idea that was fully usable and understandable by consumers that we need to have a dashboard. But the idea of the dashboard at the moment, I think, is making a lot of sense as long as it really focuses on what matters to consumers. So the total cost, whether there's a guarantee or not, insurance protection or not, and so on. And then about digitalization, I think that's something that is happening. So this is not something, you know, that we can push back. I see we need to look at it from the consumer perspective. What we see in insurance is that you get a very wide variety of different types of needs and preferences when it comes to digitalization. You will have a number of consumers who actually prefer to go online. They like that. A number of consumers who prefer to have face-to-face meetings, and that makes it very important to have, you know, shops in the small villages, very diversified and present networks of distribution channels. But for the majority of consumers, actually what they do is they go hybrid. So they start by looking for information online, they compare different offers online, and before they make an informed decision, they actually go and see an advisor. So digitalization can help a lot in that context, whether it can help in having the consumers going through the questionnaire. I'm not entirely sure of that because I had my own personal experience here in Belgium where I had to do the knowledge and experience tests on a Sunday evening before my appointment with my financial advisor on the Monday morning. The test took me about 30 minutes. I consider myself as pretty financially educated, but actually on a number of questions, I failed. That came as a surprise to me, moderately, because some of the questions I actually could not understand the link with the advice. So we spent some time with the advisor the morning after so that she can guide me through the questionnaire. They could explain the jargon also, and she acted as a translator. So again, that shows how useful financial advisors are to support consumer understanding. But you're right also, social media influencers, I think this is also what you had in mind. And there are a number of good things that are being done there in terms of awareness, in terms of promoting financial education. But we see a lot of risk also in terms of scam, for example, and so on. So yes, it's good to see the European Commission and the return investment strategy also taking action and trying to address this risk to the benefit of consumers.
We have to finish, and I want to deal with a little bit with pensions very, very shortly. I would like to deal with taxation, but fortunately the previous roundtable dealt already. I think it's very important, but let's put aside that. On pensions, what is really the problem with pensions? I mean, are we telling the citizens the right things? They should listen about that. I mean, are we talking about transparency? Are we really transparent on pensions? Is that to understand? And on these cultural differences that somebody mentioned about different countries, is that something that we are addressing rightly? Can you make a short comment on the pension issue? Andrea, yeah, maybe you, okay. If you want to start, Andrea, because
look, I'm not working in the pension area, so I'm probably not the right one to speak about it. But I believe that as part of our SIU work, we are looking very carefully into the pensions, and we will come forward with suggestions on including on auto enrollment, pension tracker, pension dashboards, and I think this is probably a good way forward. In addition, of course, as you know, the revision of IORP and PEP.
We are definitely not transparent enough when it comes to pensions. And the first very big issue that there is with pensions is that, first of all, many people do not know how big the contributions are. What is even worse, they are not aware about the returns of their pensions. So it's difficult for them also to foresee how high the pension is going to be. And it's also quite evident from our report. There are cases and countries where even Better Finance with our qualified researchers struggle to find the data to disclose the real returns of the pension savings. So this is the one thing. And the second thing is, as I said already, even very well educated, literate, financially literate people are proactive enough to do something about their pensions. And that is why Better Finance really believes that the one way to deal with this problem is the auto-enrollment. And as I said already, also the big caveat and condition here is that people should be auto-enrolled in very good quality pensions, providing good returns.
Jacobo, you want to?
No, just telegraphic. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we do have a problem with pension over-reliance on Pillar 1 is the elephant in the room. So yeah, absolutely. I think pension reform is where the test of the mettle of member states will come in the coming years to see, what's the real level of ambition. I mean, most of our countries are, as I said, reliant on state pension Pillar 1, and all the funds that are there are also not invested. So that's a big problem for me. It's pension reform is going to be critical in the next 5 years.
William, before you answer, being a French person, do you think that we don't tell the citizens the truth, or the citizens doesn't want to understand when they are told? I'm talking a little bit about the French example, huh?
Okay.
On pensions, and the need to pay for pensions and retirement.
Right. Okay, I don't want to make any enemies there. So I'm going to skip that question and just say that I've been living in Belgium for 20 years or more. I don't want to have any issues with trade unions in France or in Belgium. But Mario Nava said it very clearly yesterday. The first challenge for Europe it's not Trump, it's not competitiveness, it's actually the demographic challenge. We got a huge issue here and we need to address it urgently. One other thing he said is there's a bright future for financial advisors because there will be a huge demand. I'm not entirely sure about that because for getting a demand, you need people to be aware that they're facing a pensions gap and a pension challenge. And I'm not sure people are aware. You see it clearly in France, but you see it clearly across Europe as well.
Sure.
Hence the importance of the pensions dashboard, the pension tracking system, auto-enrollment. And I think the European Commission can do a lot there in promoting good practices, inviting member states to do more. But that's really a huge challenge for the future, and not only for the European institutions and the industry, but for consumers in the first place.
Okay, thank you very much. Just in favor of the representative of the European Commission, it's clear that we don't have a representative here of the European Council, which will be the ones really to respond about certain paralysis in the European projects. Then thanks very much to Andrea, thanks very much to Alessandra, to William, and to Jacobo for your participation in the panel. Thanks to you.
I'm going to close very quickly this very rich morning we got, the opportunity to spend together, thanks to the initial presentation of our report, and then after the break with this very rich panel moderated by Joseph. What is my understanding? I would just do some comments about the role of EFPA. We have been spending the most of these 25 years experience trying to get the best curricula for our professionals. We have been working a lot in studying the different certificates we could launch on the European market in order to put our professional in the condition to work as best as possible in managing the interest of their clients. We reached a lot of numbers, being able to get more than 100,000 certificates holder. It's a lot. It was the target we wanted to reach in our 25th anniversary, and we did. Now we are trying to do something different. We are trying, thanks to this huge representation that we have in the financial sector, to be one partner in the dialogue with the European stakeholder. That's what we are trying to do. We have been trying to do for the last couple of years. And this is the example of the possibility we have to start engaging with our European counterpart in the dialogue in order to try to get the best possible results for our investors, final investors. There is one topic that we didn't get the time to go through, which is maybe a good topic to discuss in the next Congress we could organize, which is value for money. I would have liked very much to ask to our panelists that we stopped talking about inducement yes, inducement not, because we understood that the reality is to accept that in the different countries we could have the different model, paid with inducement or paid with advisory fee. But now the most important topics to think about is how can we measure value for money? Because for the asset management industry, it could be quite easy. I mean, there is a benchmark. We can discuss what is the best benchmark to use, but when you have the performance of a mutual funds, it's easy to compare with a benchmark representing that sector of the market in order to understand if the asset manager did a good job or not. But when you have to measure the added value of an advisor, what is the benchmark? The most important goal that an advisor should reach is to help the client to manage the bias, not to allow him to invest to disinvest in the worst period, which is exactly what happened normally. That's a huge effort that the advisor should make, and this is something very difficult to measure because you should compare the time value performance with the money weighted performance, which is a nightmare to try to establish in a common way. So I feel that thinking about how to apply the value for money measurements, it's a huge topic to discuss, and maybe EFPA will like to be involved in this kind of analysis. The conclusion that both Alessandra and Mariola reached after presenting the results of the report show you clearly that this first experiment we did working together, it seems to me absolutely interesting. The results have been amazing, and I hope that our cooperation will continue for the future, because we have a lot of topics to discuss and to study carefully. And I hope to get the opportunity soon to see all of you again together with us. Thanks a lot for being with us today. Sorry, you're right. The lunch is served just in the room in front of us.